Good evening. Welcome to the Monroe County Council meeting. Today is Tuesday, January 28th, 2025. It is 5:02, so we are going to go ahead and get started here. I'd like to note for the record that we have a full council slate here. And to my right, we have Councilor Hawk, Henry, Iverson, Decker, Wilt, and our newest council member, Liz Fido. And if y'all could give me a welcome, help me give Liz a warm welcome. We are so happy to have you join us. And now, without further ado, if you all would be able to stand with me to say the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Now we move on to the adoption of our agenda. And do we have any council members that would like to amend our agenda? All right. And I would like to say, I'd like to amend our agenda for a couple of items. One, to add item 12, Resolution 2025-5, opposing Indiana State or Senate Bill 1. And I'd also like to amend the agenda to add item number 13, which is a discussion regarding the Financial Solutions Group contract known as FSG, and to amend the subsequent item numbers as needed. Do I have any objections? All right, seeing no objections, so ordered. Yes.
To look at the agenda, I want to make sure that discussion on Senate Bill 1 after the Sheriff's Office presentation.
Councilor Hawk, you're going to need to move your mic because we can't hear what you're saying.
Okay, all right. To repeat myself, I want to make sure that moving to discuss Senate Bill 1 is after the Sheriff's Office presentation, because we have all these good folks here to speak with us. And if they're interested in Senate Bill 1, which hopefully everyone is, they'll just stay.
Yeah. And I think
You made the motion to have them before the sheriff's discussion. Councilor Hawk's wanting them after the.
Are you saying the motion was before or after?
Before.
Oh, well then my vote would be nay. And hopefully it would be everyone else's, because these folks are waiting to hear from us.
Ask on our agenda here, and of course we want to respect everybody's time in addition to the Sheriff's Office time, that we can continue to move forward in the agenda. So, any other discussion? Okay.
Since Councilor Hawk is, would like to object to that motion, would you like to go as a roll call vote?
Yes.
Thank you.
But the vote was already taken. I just was trying to clarify what the motion was because I couldn't tell. But move forward.
So I understand, I think, Councilor Hawk's intent here. And so I'm wondering if it could be that if we run into trouble time-wise, that to respect the time of the folks here, that we could amend it and adjust it if time becomes an issue.
I think that is also something that we could do. We can also put a time on ourselves for the discussion. So I would recommend and suggest that if we want to make sure, and I ask for all 7 of us to make sure that we keep task so that we can get to everybody and everybody can go home in a respectable amount of time here, I would ask to make sure, in order for us to make sure that we get to this at a decent amount of time, that we limit the conversation to 10 minutes for that resolution. About 10, 15. Okay. Any other questions, objections, concerns? Okay. Thank you. All right. Next, we are going to move on to public comment for items not on the agenda. We ask anybody that wants to make public comment to please come to the lectern here in that U Hill room or raise your hand via Teams. You will have 3 minutes to make your comment. And I will look to the lovely audience. No takers, maybe? And I'm not seeing anything on Teams. Going once, going twice. All right. We came for business. All right, next up is our department update, and looks like we have Mr. Jordan Miller that is going to be coming to us to give a commissary fund semi-annual report. Welcome, Mr. Miller.
Hello. Jordan Miller, Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Correctional Center Financial Coordinator, here to discuss the second half of 2024 commissary. The balance as of July 1st, as you can see, is $82,675.89. We had a commissary receipt total of $129,703.76, $662.12 worth of interest, $94,951.16 of expenditures, and a ending balance as of December 31st of $118,090.61. I've provided all the monthly reflections of what was spent, kind of a breakdown, more exact reflection of those breakdowns of items. I've also provided kind of an expenditures by category. As you'll notice, equipment was quite a large expense by far. I've also provided a couple of expenditures, a listing of the top expenditures from each of those lines. Commissary inventory, which is resale. Nicotine pouches were the top, followed by beverages that are being resold. Line charges, electricity for Duke Energy, water, these are for our substation, Dillman Road, Southern Monroe Water. We had desks, chairs, etc. for the addition of our medical mental health positions, as well as our transport office was a large portion of that equipment total, followed by some inmate clothing items, hygiene products, training room chairs purchased from Bob Barker, and then followed by finally paint and supplies for a Sallyport update. And then the others are rather straightforward inmate haircuts. We have a hair stylist who comes in almost weekly who does inmate haircuts and beard trims, which is the extent of that category. Contractual expenses were our transition team director, Mr. Grass, for travel reimbursements. And finally, miscellaneous consists primarily of inmate worker meals, as well as a cookout that took place for those individuals. I'll gladly answer any questions anyone might have.
All right, I will look to my right here, Councilor Iverson.
Well, thank you for coming and providing this very important update. And I'm really happy to see this breakdown. We get this very regularly, and of course that's for important reasons. It's good to have transparency with all these things. I don't have any questions. I'm really happy to see the detail of this 8-page report. And I just wanted to share that it's really a treat when you go into the jail for a tour, when you see that those inmate worker meals are being ordered. It's really kind of fun to watch everyone kind of light up as that food arrives, because definitely. I think the last time I was there, they were painting the walls and they had to get up pretty high and everything. So I'm happy to see that folks are doing that. So thank you again for this important report.
Thank you.
Yes, as many of us have been following along what's going on at the state, we know that there's legislation being presented having to do with the commissary funds. So I would just invite you to follow along with that, and to, since I'm on the legislative group for the state, if you'll let me know what your thoughts are on that and what the sheriff's thoughts are.
Obviously, there's some concern with the potential for those funds to be reduced or to come to an end. So we are aware of that. We are. I haven't heard really any recent updates other than the fact that we are well aware of the potential for those funds to be reduced quite a bit.
Right.
So.
I just think, we should be very proud here in Monroe County that you're staying in touch with us and letting us know what's going on. And regretfully, it appears that maybe not all counties are as thoughtful as you folks are. And there's some thought that maybe the council should vote on those appropriations or whatever. But I just wanted to make sure that you all were following along and to let us know what your thoughts are so that we can share them with others at the state.
Just real quickly, to comment on your concern there. When the sheriff first came into office, one of his promises to this body and to the taxpayers and to anybody that's listening and watching what we're doing there was to use that commissary fund for purposes of improvement of the jail and the jail conditions and things that benefit the residents there in that facility. And I think we have really strived to do that. Hence, this report is pretty detailed because we want to be as absolutely transparent as possible because there's nothing for us to not be transparent about. But just so everybody's up to speed, one of the things that the Indiana Sheriff's Association has done is that each one of their conferences that they have, and there's 4 per year, the State Board of Accounts comes to those conferences and gives us a refresher course on what commissary can and can't be used for, what the reporting requirements are. Questions are received from sheriffs and jail commanders there about things that they may be concerned about or have questions about, and it's a back and forth session. So we attend those. We always attend the State Board of Accounts training, and anybody that's dealing with those funds is privy to that information. So a large part of this is educational for us to make sure that we stay on the cutting edge of what is permissible and, more importantly, what's not permissible and how we account for that. So we're very aware of it, and I appreciate the notation there.
Thank you. All right, looking over to my left, any other questions? All right. All right, thank you so much. We appreciate that. Also wanted to see if there are any other departments that would like to give any department update. And I see the representative from the auditor's office has her hand up. Hi.
Hello. I just wanted to give an update that we are getting information regarding federal grants and reversions to council. That should be in your inboxes very shortly. In addition to that, we do have a revenue report that should be sent out early tomorrow morning. So just keep an eye out for that.
Because it feels like breaking news every hour.
Yes,
with a lot of that right now.
We are keeping on top of those, and we are reacting to legislation as it comes out.
You have a question?
Screen is not working.
TSD, if the screen down here in front of Councilor Hawk isn't working, can we get that screen working, please? All right. Meantime,
I actually wanted to make a comment to the auditor's office, and maybe this is an appropriate thing for us to think about or consider, but as we receive word about changes to anything around grants, those documents, it is likely that our elected officials and or the folks that are around organizational groups, clerks talk to clerks, who then talk to statewide election officials, et cetera. As they hear those things, it wouldn't be the worst thing if there was a shared drive that collated, connected that we could all go in. And the reason I say this, Commissioner Madera had sent a signal out earlier on this. How are we going to keep track of it? And I think our folks, you can't hide anything from them. If mouse is hiding in Washington, D.C. related to their area, they'll find it. And so I think that could come into here centrally, and maybe that's a little bit more of that, but it would keep us really up to track, because any shift to that is this funding is going to come before this council to figure out how to do it. We're not going to be able to do all of that and everything else we got to do.
Yes, and if you drive, we're happy to set up that file so that people can easily access it.
Something along those lines, I think.
Okay. Looking around. All right. Now we will move on to item number 6 with consent agenda items.
Council, I move to approve the following consent agenda items for January 28th. A, the Health Department's request, the creation of account line 38110, Services and Charges in Fund 1159 Health Fund, and to simultaneously approve a category transfer of $2,500 from the Personnel category to the Services category. B, the Health Department's request of a category transferred in Fund 8111-0000 Crisis Coag Grant of $16,823.74 from the Supplies category to the Services category. And C, the Aviation Department's request the creation of account line 40120 Tools and Equipment in Fund 1107-0000 Aviation Fund, and to simultaneously approve a category transfer of $23,515.54 from the Supplies category to the Capital category.
I need a second, please.
All right, we got a... Hello. All right, we got a motion and a second. Are there any questions or comments from council? Look to my right. Look to my left. All right. And this is something that we can do a voice vote for, okay? All those in favor of approving the consent agenda items signify by saying aye. Aye. Any nays? All right, motion carries. Thank you. Now we will go ahead and move on to item number 7, which is the County Council organization.
Council, I move to approve the 2-year citizen appointment of Trent Seats to the Convention and Visitors Commission with a term date of December 31st, 2026.
Need a second? Second. All right. We got a motion and a second. And for item, just again, for the general public, we did this a couple of weeks ago. We usually don't have public comment on our approval to boards and commissions. So, any questions?
Just that this was an omission that we had previously, and glad that we can take care of it tonight.
Thank you. And we always thank all of those residents that want to step up and serve. So we thank you very much. And if you are watching the meeting and you too want to serve on a county's board and commission, you can go to co.monroe.in.us and figure out how you could serve your community. All right. Without that said, may I please have a roll call vote?
Counselor Deckard.
Yes.
Counselor Iverson. Yes. Counselor Henry. Yes. Counselor Feidel.
Yes.
Counselor Hawk. Yes. Counselor Crossley. Yes. Counselor Wiltz. Yes. Motion passes unanimous.
Thank you. All right, now we will move on to item number B, which is appointments of county council members to liaisons of certain boards and committees. And this is something that we would do in our reorganizational meeting, but because we did not have a full council, and we are going to take that time this evening. Council should have received an email of the list of liaisons. So I will ask Michelle if she could share her screen so we could see. Can we just move on? TSD, the monitors down here are off. Is there any way that we can get those on, please?
Do it right next time.
That one's not for the gallery.
It doesn't matter, let's just keep going.
I am not able to share my screen for some reason. I don't know what's going on.
Okay.
So when Corey gets done over there, if he could come over here.
I just shared my screen. Is this sufficient? Well, no, you need to drive, don't you?
Also needs to put it in.
It kicked me out. I have to.
Okay, I'll do it for now.
Yeah.
And then once you get in, you can do it. Does that sound good?
Thank you.
I could do it. Since I don't know if he's got duties. If you're gonna keep track of it, then he can do it. You know, whoever
Yeah.
it just has to be has to stay the same person the whole time.
Okay. All right. Okay. So while we are working on technical difficulties in real time here, I'm gonna have Counselor Iverson go ahead and work on the spreadsheet so that we can enter the names of the counselors who will be the liaisons, because the idea of the spreadsheet is for it to be calculated. So therefore we can see how many appointments that we have, and that one or the other is not, everybody has a fair share of appointments. Are you? Molly's doing it. Oh. Right, so Molly's gonna do it. Okay, so now that we got somebody doing it, all right. And if we can make that bigger. Okay. And it looks like we will start first with the assessor's office. The liaisons, we have 2. And who would like to be? Counselor Hawk and Iverson, would you all like to continue, or what say you?
This is a big department that does quite a bit. This is my first year being a liaison. I feel like I'm just scratching the surface, so I'd ask consent to have another year at the go here. Councilmember Hawk, would you like to join me again in the assessor's department?
Happy to, unless someone else would like to have a slot, whichever.
Any objections to that? Okay, moving on. So it will stay with Counselor Hawk and Iverson. Thank you. Next up is auditor. We got 2, and that was Counselors Deckard and Hawk. Would you 2 like to stay on?
Madam Chair, my recommendation, typically that has been a significant member of council leadership because of the nature of the council. So either you or Counselor Iverson or both could look at that if you felt like that would add to that contact with the auditor's office.
All right. And I know that's been, looking at the years past, looks like we've had council presidents be a part of that. So I will say that I would be one of the 2 liaisons for the auditor. And Counselor Hawk? Or any other takers for the auditor's office?
If Counselor Hogg does not want to do it, I would be happy to join you.
Councilor Hawk?
It really doesn't matter because when I want to know something, I'm going to ask it anyway. I don't wait to be someone's liaison, and everyone knows that, so.
Okay, there's more to being a liaison than just getting information from that department. And since we have new folks, I do think it might warrant just a moment making sure that we're on the same page with what the duties entail. I don't have a job description that I can refer to, but the idea is that you are familiar with that department's budget and you are in communication with that department as necessary to serve council questions, but also to bring information from that department back to council for consideration when that department has an agenda item to place, and not every, it depends, there's some flexibility, but.
Just hasn't been happening.
Well,
but it should.
If it's something on the consent agenda, I don't anticipate that someone's going to contact me for just moving something, a category transfer. But for any other items where there would be a discussion or a vote outside of the consent agenda, it is protocol that you would, as the department head, contact your council liaison and vet that item, so to speak, make sure that it's brought in in the manner in which the council office and councilors can best receive it.
And I'd like to add to that is that there's some confusion, I think, about because it's different with county government than it is in business, where you might think the liaison is there to support and advocate on behalf of the department. And we're really, that's not what we're doing. We're just there to understand their budget and to ask questions and bring forth information. But I know there's some department heads that think it means we're supposed to advocate for them, and that's just, well, hopefully we're advocating for whatever's right, whatever department that is.
Absolutely. That's a good point. Thanks.
Yeah.
So to that end, it sounds like we got somebody else to be the auditor liaison.
I'm happy to do that.
Okay, thank you. All right. Our aviation liaison, we no longer have former Counselor McKim, and looking around to see who would like to take on that liaisonship.
Madam President, I would offer myself for that particular liaison. I'm not necessarily looking to supplant former member McKim's every last liaison he had, but that one does have particular interest to me, not least of which for the fact that many planes fly over my house on the west side of the county. So I would be interested in that one if no one else is.
Objections? All right. You're it. All right. BEDC development membership.
Madam President, I would be happy to take that role and to serve in that if that is what the council wants.
We'll be glad to hand over the roles or the reins in that for you. You'll be fine. Okay, moving on. The Bloomington Economic Development Commission.
It should say corporation, shouldn't it?
Yes, yeah.
I typed it. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Any takers?
Oh, okay. All right.
Oh, okay. We stand corrected. So it is the Bloomington Economic Development Commission that works with Bloomington, the city of Bloomington.
So I would be happy to take that on. I have some BEDC experience from before. I could maybe fill that role. I see Councilor Munson was that before. I'd be happy to step in.
Good. All right. That is you, Councilor Feidel. Yay. All right. Moving right along to the building liaison. That was also former council member McKim's duty, but looking at anybody else.
I have an interest in that if no one else feels strongly about it.
Other takers? All right. Counselor Hawk, you are it. All right. Next up, we have 2 liaisons to be the clerks, to be of the clerks. And beforehand, it was Iverson and McKim. But who would like, Counselor Iverson, would you like to continue?
I'm more than happy to continue. I think this year is going to be something of a quiet year, but I'm happy to do so.
Okay. And I think I saw a hand. Okay.
Do we need 2 people? We haven't always had 2 people. We flex that depending on what we anticipate the need of individual departments might be. Just saying.
First of all, I'd offer to be a second if we want to continue a second. Secondly, to answer Councilmember Wilt's question, given the impending decisions of the election board on potentially adoption of vote center committees, we would be talking about some cost in the next year from that office or not. But having been the most recent member of this body that was on the election board and that also commissioned that committee over a year ago, I'm happy to take the second seat.
Okay. So we will keep it at 2, and Iverson and Henry are it. All right. The commissioners liaison, usually that is the president and the pro tem of council. So it will be myself along with Counselor Iverson. All right. Moving on to the Community Corrections Advisory Board. Counselor Wiltz was the liaison last year. Would you like to continue to stay?
I would, please.
Okay. Got it. And Justice Advise or Financial JFAC, the artist form or known as JFAC, Justice Financial Advisory Committee. It was myself, Wilt, and Iverson.
I think in terms of where we're at with that body, the continuity might be helpful. And I think that's probably the best way to do it. Looking at staff, looks like they want to say something.
I believe the resolution sunsets that committee unless you'd like to extend it for purposes of updates.
In December 31st, yeah.
Of this year.
I'm comfortable at this point, given where we are with corrections task, where we are with the transition team, allowing that sunset to happen. And if we need to have additional conversations with those different topics, then we certainly can do so. But that's my opinion.
I concur.
Councilor Wiltz.
I support. Hello? I support dissolving, allowing it to sunset, whatever the terminology is, as well. Although I would encourage us, maybe unofficially outside of that committee, to check back on the recommendations and the progress. I know that Councilor Iverson had been keeping us abreast of where we are with respect to progress on that exhaustive list of recommendations, and I don't want to lose track of that because I do think there are some valid goals still ready to be attained.
Okay.
I understand the assignment.
Okay. So we will keep it. And then, no, we will dissolve it. Okay, got it. Got it. Got it good. Okay, so we are dissolving it. All right. Nothing else needs to be said about that. All right. Convention and Visitors Commission. Any takers?
I'm happy to also take this one on unless there's another interest from the members.
That is a set meeting time, is it not? And what is that day?
It was lunchtime on Tuesdays or Wednesdays.
I think it's Wednesdays.
It's Monday.
Well, I was completely
It's on
wrong.
Mondays. Quarterly. Yeah, that for me, that's in a teaching block, so I would otherwise be interested, but I'll pass.
So,
There's Courtney in our office worked on a list of when these meetings and times happen and the frequency.
Oh,
So this
wonderful.
might help.
all right. So it seems like Counselor Henry will take that on. All right. Congratulations. Next up is the coroner liaison, Counselor Iverson.
I'm willing to let this one pass unless anyone wants it. All right, I got it.
Really did that.
You stepped in it. Anybody?
I'll take it. I'll keep it. It's a good one.
Counselor Iverson will continue on with that assignment. Council office liaison, looks like that's me, JC. All right. Courts liaison. It was our beloved Counselor Munson and myself, and any other takers? Oh, I see 2 hands. Also, I saw another hand. Okay, so we will have,
Oh,
Do you want to do it? That's fine.
yeah.
okay.
What? Nope.
You too. Liz, you want to flip? You pick.
No, I think you should.
You should do it, Liz.
So.
It's because there's a judge here.
Okay, so what say y'all 3 down there?
Those 2.
Okay, so we will have Counselors Fidel and Wiltz. Dispatch Policy Board.
Was me.
You,
Happy to share the wealth. It's interesting. And it's not complicated, but it's I think I'm trying to see. Do you have how often they meet? Yeah, quarterly. I was gonna say it doesn't. They don't meet very often. Okay, I'll do it.
all right. Downtown Bloomington Inc. Board. Okay, so it seems like Counselor Fidel says that she goes to that meeting monthly anyway, so it seems like it would be a best fit. So, congratulations. All right, Emergency Management Advisory Council.
Madam President, I'd put my name forward for the EMAC if no one else is interested.
Okay, seeing no objections, congratulations. All right, Emergency Management Liaison, it would make sense for you to continue to do that.
Take that on as well, yeah, thank you.
All right. Employee Services Department Liaison.
I've done this for 2 years. It's wonderful. I think maybe others should take it on. I've done it for 2 years.
I've done it. It's a good way to get to know what's happening HR wise in.
I could step up if nobody else wants it. Okay.
Great. Environmental Commission.
This is a rebuilding year. The commissioners are redoing the contract or the whole for this. So it could either be I could serve on it again this year, or it would be an opportunity for others to take on the reins during this rebuilding year. All right, I'll keep it.
It was you, Counselor Wiltz.
Us. I'm happy to share if somebody has an interest in getting to know the Extension Service. They're cool people. They do fun things.
I would be, if you are not
Okay.
Okay. Counselor Deckard. Oh, Food and Beverage Tax Advisory Commission.
I could do it since Cheryl did it before if no one else is interested.
Objections? That's you. Okay. Greater Bloomington Chamber of Commerce. From my understanding, this is usually the president's role. Is it? Maybe not.
Not necessarily, but it could be.
Okay. Okay.
They'd take you. Guaranteed.
That would be nice. I would feel nice to be wanted. Okay. I will sign myself up to the Tribune. So that's me. All right. A big one here. 2 people here for the health department. Who would like to be the health liaison?
After 20 years, I'm happy to go back to the health department. It's been some time, but I'm happy to take one of those seats. Thank you.
So that's 2, right? Anybody else interested?
I can go back.
Okay. Well, okay. And can we see
listen.
what the total is?
Thank you for that.
Okay. All right. So we got Iverson at 6, Henry at 6, Counselor Fidel at 5, along with Wiltz at 4, Crossley at 4, Decker and Hawk at 2.
Looks like we're not working at all. We're gonna have to get on that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It's
All right.
Plenty of opportunities left.
buckle up, Buttercup. All right. We are moving on to the Highway Department. Those are usually 2 liaisons. Last year it was Hawk and Iverson.
I'd love to take highway.
And I think taking on health means I should probably give this one up.
Okay.
Those are both pretty big assignments.
Okay.
This one also need 2.
Yes. So do I hear?
Make it fair to whatever, so everybody can have an opportunity to learn the budgets, although it's going to be a whole brand new way to look at their money.
So would you like to stay on?
I would like to, but I
Okay.
don't want to be that
Okay.
selfish, but
Okay. Well, you got it. So it's a Deckard Hawk collab there. Okay. I'm having fun. Income Tax Council PS Lit Committee. We had 2 people, and it was McKim and Wiltz. Wiltz is still here. Wiltz, would you still like it?
I'm happy to continue doing it. It's a specific set of meetings during a specific set of time. Very sort of like 1 month of intense work, and then it's not intense work, it's intense availability. So, but yes, I can do it, but we do need 2 people.
Okay.
And they're just, it's a core, you have meetings with those others on the Income Tax Council, and that includes city council members, as well as folks from Ellettsville and I'm assuming Steinsville too. And so it's just, you got to be there. It's really, and because there are only a couple of them, you got to be there.
So we say a couple of them. It's a couple of intense
It's a
meetings.
couple of meetings.
Okay.
It's just, you got to be there.
I'm happy to join you as it's in July.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. So we got 2. All right. So we got Henry and Wiltz. All right. Internal Control Committee. Is that usually?
I can't remember why we flipped that from Councilor Hawk to me when I was president, but I believe it's mostly relations with the auditor and maintaining constant communication there. So that's the best I could advise.
So is this something that we need? Especially since we already have a liaison to the auditor.
Well, we have two.
Two, right.
So, and it's you and me.
Mhm.
So why don't I just do this since you're president?
Got it. You take it. Okay. And moving on, the jail liaison. Oh, I'm sorry.
The internal control is actually a committee that has the auditor, treasurer, and then some appointed people. And so not having a council appointment may have quorum issues if we need to have it. So it's a committee that the county council has a seat at the table.
It technically meets when the State Board of Accounts comes in with the post report, right?
Well, we meet quarterly. I am the, full disclosure, I am the commissioner's appointee to that committee, so I'm actually a committee member. It's the only committee I've ever been part of or probably ever will be. But we meet quarterly. We talk about things such as the forms that are required to fill out for nepotism and those kind of things. We talk about asset inventories and things like that. It's a very exciting committee, I can tell you. So, but we do need to have a council representative on it because that's in the ordinance.
Make sure that those counselors get those meeting invitations when those go out.
Yeah, did not. Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah.
Thanks. Had no idea. That's fine.
Okay. All right. Jail liaison. Those had two, and those were Councilors Hawk and Wiltz.
I'd like to stay on there.
Okay. So we got Councilor Hawk.
Happy to continue if you'd like me to. I'm also willing to.
No objections to that? All right. You got it. All right. Legal liaison.
They're a good group. They're right downstairs. It's easy.
I have the department here. I'll take it.
I'm not hearing Liz speak up.
I should-
Liz said-
Early.
She has 5 already. She's
So Councilor Iverson said he's not taking that one because it's a lot.
Oh,
So,
Okay.
well, in that case, I would love to work with the legal department
There you
more, particularly on that internal.
all right. And this next one is a very big deal here. The Long-Term Finance Committee. Last year, it was made of Councilors Deckert, Hawk, and McKim. I know that that is something that the president also appoints. So I will also appoint myself. And Councilor Hawk, you were very vocal on that last year. Would you like to continue?
As usual, you mean? I'm pretty vocal.
I expect nonetheless.
That's huge, that committee. That's why I'm not speaking up for a lot of the others, because if you do this one right, you're not gonna have time to do anything else. Especially not this year.
So it sounds like you're good with being, can I count on you?
What?
Can I count? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Got it. And
Well, the eyes are coming this way. I guess I could take it on if I could be
you know,
helpful.
I'm just looking because it's great to look
Is
at.
anybody else want it? Would anybody else rather have it?
I think it would be a nice mixture of a group of counselors to be on there. So, yeah.
Did you do it before?
I have not done it before. I'm
Oh.
happy to do it. I'm happy to. I feel like I'm taking everything.
Well, these are all good candies to have. And I am also, if it helps the council to continue on in that role, since I
Well,
served.
let me make it number 6. I'll take it.
Be a very important committee this year for sure. All right.
Sorry.
We have Counselors Crossley, Hawk, and Vital.
Are we going to continue to have a lot of those meetings be open to the whole council? Maybe not, maybe it wasn't a lot. It just, I know that sometimes we were included and that was very.
I think it would be in the best
Nice.
interest that we notice it so that the council, full council should be able to come to it. Because there's obviously a lot is going on that we've mentioned and referenced several times today. So I think that would be very beneficial for everybody to be able to come to. So if we could notice it when we have those meetings scheduled for the full councils. Okay. We're past the long-term finance. And watching on my screen here. Aha. Metropolitan Planning Organization. Just one person? Anybody?
I don't see it on here. And Courtney, thank you for pulling this together. When do they meet?
Not a Friday.
Friday afternoons. Is this, now it is. First Friday, I think. It's been a couple years since I've done it.
Nobody responded back, so.
It's, if you're recalling that, and that, yeah, I think.
I remember because it's always in a weird teaching block for me in the spring that I've got, and it's on a Friday.
Like a Friday at 1 or 1:30, once a month.
If no other members are interested, I'm happy to serve in that one.
Okay. Trying to find some information from the city's website. Okay. Monroe County Fair Board.
Be happy to do that one.
Okay. All right. Counselor Vital. And then next up is, we are almost through this list. Monroe Fire Protection District. We had Counselors Hawk and McKim last year.
I can.
Okay. So Counselor Hawk would like to stay on, and Counselor Decker would also like that as well. Next up is the Opioid Settlement Work Group.
I'd like to stay on this. I think we got the first round out the door, and now I'd like to work with some other folks to get that second round out.
Okay. All right, Parks and Rec Liaison. Oh, that's okay.
I'd like to stay on that one, please.
Okay. Counselor Wiltz. All right. Personnel Administration Committee, also known as PAC. I was on it last year, only for like 1 month.
That's right.
So.
Yeah, this was not an updated.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, I was appointed late last year, so I'm happy to stay on. I think that was the implication.
Okay.
I'd like to stay on as well.
Okay. We need one more council member.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes, sir.
Liz Vital, punch me if I'm saying something wrong, but since you're doing employee relations,
It would make sense, wouldn't it?
yeah, I
Yeah.
personally think so.
Okay. No punch necessary.
All right. Keep your hands to yourself. All right. Plan Commission.
That's already me.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yes, because we did that, because that one was one that we had organization. Yep, we got it.
It was appointed last meeting.
Yep.
And I would just offer so it follows Plan Department Liaison. I'm happy to take that as well.
Okay, so Henry. All right. Probation Liaison.
Was I that? Yes. I think I'm happy to do that, as again, that makes sense, especially with the Community Corrections Advisory.
Absolutely, yeah.
Another taker.
We always have two. Somebody come play with
I'm
me.
happy to come back on. I think that dovetails nicely with some of the other ones that I'm on. It's been a while since I've been liaison.
Okay. And would it make sense also for the prosecutor liaisons to also stay the same since probation is the same? Or is that too much for the both of you all?
I'm happy to stay on. That was be my third consecutive term. So if folks would like to learn more about what the prosecutor does and all the different programs associated with that department, it's a good learning opportunity.
Madam President, can we get an update on the scoreboard
Yeah,
there?
let's see the numbers.
Count here, we have Councilor Hawk at 6, Deckard 5, Crossley 5, Iverson 10, Wiltz 11, Henry 10, and Fido 8.
On the prosecutor now.
We are, yes, and yep, we are there.
That one, right? And I'm one. I'll do the other one. I'll take it.
Okay. All right. And public defender, that was me, and I would be willing to give it up.
I'm happy to take that.
Okay. Counselor Decker. Okay. Recorder liaison, Counselor Hawk, that was you. Would you like to continue? Okay. And did we do the redevelopment commission too? No? Okay. All right, redevelopment commission.
Would that make sense for Mr. Henry to do, given the planning and?
While it would, I have a conflict at that time. Yeah.
In front of us where they meet Wednesdays at 4:30, and it's a monthly meeting. What was that?
I'm always busy Wednesday afternoons.
Oh, okay.
WGCL calls me, and I answer.
Bueller? Okay. We'll leave it open and we'll continue moving forward here. I think because we have the jail liaisons as Counselors Hawk and Wilt, it also makes sense for them to continue on to be the sheriff liaisons. Do I hear any objections to that?
Thank you.
Oh, no?
100%, we always have the jail and the sheriff liaison be the same two folks. You're absolutely correct. I just want to make entirely sure that everyone is okay with me being the liaison. Okay.
Okay. All right. So it's the dynamic duo again there. Okay. Soil and Water Conservation District.
I'm happy to return to that, unless Councilor Wiltz is wanting it.
But can I play with you?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. This one is the Sophia Travis Grants Committee. We know how much that meant to Counselor Munson. That was her baby. And yeah, so.
I'd be happy to try to make it my baby.
Okay. All right. Well, you do that. So now we need 2 more.
I would love to return to that if no one else objects or wants it.
Okay. I'll, if nobody else wants to do it, I can return. Okay.
Sorry,
I
sorry.
can
The
do it.
comment was you're concerned about commitment. Could you walk like what's the level?
It's an intense amount of time during usually summer. And we get really kind of busy in the thick of it right before budget season. Last year we kind of switched it up, but the biggest thing that we normally would do on that is listening to the presentations, meeting for the scoring, and then meeting for and then the two residents that are on the committee would do the presentation of the final awards. So it's not a very long-term commitment, but it is a commitment. Yes.
I just want to state that we did change the schedule so that we could avoid some conflicts with regards to budgeting and this
Right.
kind of thing. And it would be nice to have a person on that was on last year. So
Okay.
I appreciate you staying on because that way there's some consistency
Okay.
moving
Okay.
forward.
I can do that. All right. Stormwater Management Liaison. That's
No, I'm sorry, your waste reduction.
oh, it's okay. Councilor Hawk, that was you last year.
Right, that's usually tied to the highway, you know, it's all same folks.
So it's you again. Yeah. Okay. Are you okay with that?
Yes, unless somebody else would like it.
Okay. All right. SUDAC. That was you, Councilor Iverson.
That's right. I'm still president of that body. I'd like to stay on unless someone has a burning desire to take that over. It stands for Substance Use Disorder Advisory Commission. Okay, I'll keep it.
All right. Surveyor.
If no one objects, Madam President, I wouldn't mind liaising with Surveyor.
Okay. PSD, Technical Services Liaison.
I'm also happy to take TSD on if no one else would like to.
Okay. And Treasurer. Councilor Hawk, that was you last year. Would you like to continue?
Yes.
Okay. Then Councilor Hawk. And then Veteran Affairs Liaison, Councilor Deckard, I know that's something that you're passionate about. Would you like to continue?
Yes, please don't take my veterans away. Thank you.
This is a typo because waste reduction.
It is a typo.
Okay, I'm like, that's, okay.
Yep.
All right, we just need one person for the Waste Reduction District Board.
I've been appointed because we already had
That's
a
right,
meeting.
that was the
Yeah.
other one. Okay, so no discussion there. Okay, weights and measures. Would you like to either give that up or looking like you got a lot there?
I would be happy to share the
Okay.
weights and measures, with anyone interested. Let me just explain that they have a very, very simple budget. Might need a new car, though. That's all I got.
Good to know.
But you'd be helping them figure that out.
Right, right.
If no one else wants it, then I'm happy to stay on.
Or we could leave it open. Okay, so let's just, because we got,
Let's look at the count
Yeah.
real quick.
That's good.
Decker needs to step up.
Deckard needs to get on it. Measures
Okay.
under my belt.
so weights and measures goes to Deckard. All right, we're almost done, just two more. Women's Commission.
Served on that commission before as a citizen. I'd be happy to serve on that as a liaison.
Cool.
I really am interested in that spot.
Okay,
But it's so interesting. If Liz would like to join me in that so that you could learn what's going on over there.
A lot of connections.
Or whoever, whoever's not served.
Yeah, I have 11, I think, right now.
It's interesting just because I want to make sure that we do not lose track of the fact that we reduced their rate, and we don't know what's going to happen with any of that. So just want to keep an eye. I said, in case I should die before I wake.
You'll bring back that information to the council, right? What we need to know from the youth council.
All right. And it seems like Councilor Deckert just indicated that he would like to work with Councilor Hawk on the Youth Services Bureau. Oh, sorry.
Just a suggestion, not to discourage Councilor Deckard, but it is a division of the court, so it might make sense to have one of the court's liaisons also do YSB.
Give them more pack for their punch with
One
an
of
extra
those.
fund.
I'll step up.
Or just have, I've followed that since before there was a Youth Services Bureau. So if somebody else wants it, that's fine.
So, yeah, it sounds like you're staying, but then it also sounds like...
Let's have 2 people.
Yeah.
Maybe it's,
Yeah.
I'll work with you.
Okay. And then we can all take a page out of Councilor Hawk's book, and if you just need to know something, you'll just give him a call and figure it out. All right. That is the end of all of that, and our final tally is on the screen there. And then which one did we leave open? Redevelopment. Okay.
I just absolutely can't at that time. So if the commission decides to move it around my schedule, sure.
Okay.
Let me see if I can figure that out.
Very good.
I'll tackle that.
Okay. All right. So Councilor Deckard it is.
Make me even and not slacking.
Okay. All right. And again, this is something that we normally do during our organization meeting, and this is something that we like to do out in public. And then I just also challenge if there are dual roles and dual liaisons, that everybody work together in trying to be active participants with liaisons to different departments. So, yes. And then, yeah, go ahead.
Just the liaisonships will be posted on the council website as well as posted in the council office. So when you need a reminder of which ones you signed up for and which ones you didn't, that's going to be available online and in person.
Okay. All right. So we appreciate y'all sitting through all of that, and we will move right along to item number 8, which is from the Board of Commissioners.
Council, I move to approve ordinance 2025-02, fixing the terms and conditions for the transfer of property associated with the Convention Center Building Corporation.
Second.
Second.
Okay. Motion and a second. Mr. Cockrell, hello.
Yes, we are here because the council has to approve any property transfer over $1,000 by ordinance. In the materials, you'll find 2 different transfers that we're contemplating. I think technically the first one, which is the property that's owned by the Convention Center Building Corporation that is transferred to the county, that is part of a lease agreement that was established in 2010 and then kind of reestablished in 2016 when we did a refinancing. Again, every property that we're talking about was purchased with innkeeper's tax for a tourism or tourism-related facility. I mean, that's kind of was the use of the property. So what we have are these properties. And Kim, are you able to do the screen share? I thought I would put up a couple of different maps to kind of help you guys know what we're talking about.
Up first.
This one's fine. If we could make it a little bigger, it'd be even better. These are what are kind of the northern portion of the properties. These will be what the properties that are involved in both of the transactions we're talking about. So we would receive these properties from the building corporation, and then through our interlocal agreement with the CIB, with the city of Bloomington, the CIB was to request properties from the county and the city, and then we were to get those properties to them. These were requested by the CIB. We had a nice conversation. The commissioners and I think the council was involved in this conversation since these were purchased with food and beverage dollars, so they're supposed to be used for tourism and tourism-related ideas. We didn't see any need to kind of do a price or charge them for these properties because they're going to utilize them for that purpose. And so these are kind of what's in both of the deeds, but particularly more important for deed 2, as this would ultimately end up with the Capital Improvement Board, who will then go through the process with the city to do the funding. Can you do the next one? And these, what I've always called the southernmost properties, are the ones that we would get from the building corporation, but since the CIB has not indicated that they needed these for use of the expanded center, we would hold these and still retain them as the county retains other properties. But we still need to make a note that these were purchased with innkeeper's tax dollars, as that might drive what the intended use is in the future. So those are kind of the two transactions we're talking about. When discussing this with the city of Bloomington, indicated that they needed a warranty deed in order to do their bonding transaction. We don't have all the pieces in place for that yet. We need some releases from the previous lien holder, which that debt was paid off at the end of last year, beginning of this year. So we're working with the lender on that, and I expect that would happen pretty shortly. But those are kind of the two transactions that are outlined in that ordinance. If you have any questions, more than happy to answer them. But it's
All right. Councilor Hawk?
You hear me now? It's on now. The Bureau's building is not included in this group of transfers, correct?
no.
Thank you.
What building was that question?
I believe she's referring to the building on Old State Road 37 North, where the current visitor center is.
I called it the Bureau's building, but the building belongs to the county.
Yeah, okay.
To the extent that council approval is required, which that's a cool phrase in the contract here, I think this is a done deal. I mean, I think this is a no-brainer. Excuse me. The slowdown that we've seen previously on this, I don't think needs to happen here, and I intend to support it.
Well, I would say it's definitely required for that second phase.
Ready to move? Councilor Wiltz?
I have a question out of more curiosity than anything. The southern properties that will now just be not just owned but managed, then I guess through the county directly. Are there any plans for that? And because right now they're income generating, if I recall. Will that continue to go into the same funds that it has been? I mean, it was funding the convention center operations, right?
Yes, and I anticipate, since the innkeeper's tax funding was utilized for that, I have not heard any change from that philosophy given this transaction.
Okay.
I mean, I think that's if it needs to be changed, that's a conversation with you and the commissioners and maybe the CVC to kind of determine how they want that, you guys want to see that moving forward.
Okay, but as of now, we know it's supposedly still going to the same thing, even though, okay. Sounds good. Thanks.
Any other questions, comments? All right. Now we are ready for public comment. If you are here to make public comment on this item, please come here to the lectern in the Nat U Hill room or raise your hand on Teams. Looks like we have a person here. Go ahead. Welcome, you have
Good
3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Joe Davis, and I am here representing the taxpayer objection petitioners of Monroe County and the taxpayer advocacy petitioners of Monroe County. This approval of ordinance of 2502 to fix the terms and conditions for the transfer of property should not go forward. This item is not needed. This was originally brought up as a means to potentially drive more summer activities. Driving more summer activities is coming at the expense of the general public, and this does not benefit the general public. This is to be a mini Lucas Oil Stadium that will be duplicating facilities that IU already has, and those facilities are not being used over the summer months when the students are gone. Hotels, restaurants will all benefit by cooperating with IU to bring in and let them utilize these facilities. The public is going to pay $100 million up front right away. That doesn't include the financing. This is a loss leader, according to Mike McAfee of Visit Bloomington. He says that this is meant to lose money to draw in people. Well, drawing in people does us all no good in our community of Monroe County. This land is too valuable to be losing money perpetually. The Board of Commissioners have given up control of the property that the public owns. This is public land already paid for. It has a higher and better use, but they have given it up to an unelected board that is appointed. And all of these board members are representing the minority groups that are going to benefit at the public expense. This cannot go forward. There are other alternatives. The taxes that were taken in through the food and beverage tax and the innkeeper's tax can go toward building hotels in locations that are closer to IU to take advantage of all of IU's needs during the summer months when they bring in all of these tournaments, pickleball, basketball, whatever.
Mr. Davis, thank you. Your time is up.
This cannot go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd just like to ask, TSD, I had it on my timer here, but we don't have a timer down here. So for the public's sake, can we make sure that we have a timer on the screen for public comment? Thank you. All right. Are there any other public commenters on this item? Please come forward. All right, seeing none, may I please have a roll call vote?
Counselor Wiltz?
Yes.
Counselor Hawk? Yes. Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Counselor Deckard? Yes. Counselor Feidel?
Yes.
Counselor Iverson? Yes. Counselor Henry?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous.
Okay. I'm not certain. Ms. Turner King, we just got word that we have a presenter that has to leave here in a few minutes. Am I able to?
You could request to amend the agenda without objection and just move that person up.
Okay. All right, council, without any objection, I would like to move item 10B up ahead of item 9, which is the aviation department. We have Judge Stafford that has to leave. So without any objection, okay. So order. So we are gonna move on to item 10B.
Council, hello. Check one. Okay, there we go. Council, I move to approve the court's request in Fund 9113-0000 Family Court Project, an additional appropriation in the amount of $47,160.07 in the services category.
Second.
Thank you, Judge Stafford. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to give a short overview or to answer questions as you all prefer. So, okay, I'm going to try to keep it green. If I fail, let me know. The Family Court Grant largely goes to provide free legal services for low-income people on a walk-in basis solely on family law cases. As I believe you are all familiar, our Constitution and under the case of Gideon v. Wainwright guarantees public defenders for people who are charged with crimes. There is no such guarantee for people facing a civil case in 90 to 95% of situations. Judge Saltzman and I have the small claims, evictions, and family court docket for most of Monroe County. I would say 80 to 90% of the litigants in our courtroom are representing themselves. They cannot afford an attorney, and they are facing huge issues over custody and protection of their children, division of the marital estate, and desperately seeking legal help. When they get legal help, they get a better result, and our courts are helped as well with efficiencies because they know better what to file and what to ask for. I will say that when I was in private practice, my best advice for my clients was make sure your other side gets a good lawyer. Because if there are two good lawyers or they're both getting legal advice, you're much more likely to come to an agreement or mediated settlement rather than needing to go to litigation, which is usually worse for the family. So I would request approval of this appropriation so that we can continue to have this service. We contract with Pro Bono Indiana, which is a nonprofit that is statewide. Its local branch is the District 10 Pro Bono Project. They provide 2 different staff attorneys who come in and do this advice. We are the fiscal county for Greene, Owen, Lawrence, Monroe, and we are adding in Clay and Sullivan for this next year. So those clinical attorneys go to all of those different counties, some virtually, and provide that legal advice and information. They do not go to court with people. They don't help beyond that initial conversation, but it's at least something. Thank you.
All right, any questions?
Question, Madam President.
Sure.
Judge Stafford, thank you for your time this evening. And I know that there are fast-moving parts coming out of Indianapolis in terms of the session up there. And given when this was submitted to the board or the council today, have you had any indication in the past day of any change in the grant and how it's being administered or funded to the county today? Just curious.
I do not. The contract has already been signed by Justin Faulkner, who is the executive for the Indiana Office of Court Services, so I don't anticipate any changes to this grant. I cannot speak for the legislature. I'm not a member of the legislature. That's way beyond my pay grade. I will state that I would be surprised, but then maybe again, I would not be surprised.
Thank you for the insight. I appreciate it.
Looking to my left, and any questions? Okay.
Can I say just one more thing before we leave? I want to welcome our new Board of Judges liaisons. I appreciate that. Looking forward to having you both. You're welcome to come observe court anytime. Almost all court is public. If there's a magnet over the door that the case is confidential, we ask that people not approach or come into the courtroom for that. Those are typically child abuse and neglect cases or guardianship cases or things with private information being shared. But otherwise, court is public, and we welcome and invite you all to come to court anytime. If you want to know a particularly good day to come, please be in touch with me or any of the judges. We'd be happy to work with you. Judge Diekoff, of course, is our presiding judge, and our vice presiding judge is Judge Harvey. Also within the Board of Judges, as our branch of government, we include probation and the Youth Services Bureau and Community Corrections, I believe. So all of those are together. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to public comment. If you would like to make public comment on this item, please come forward to the lectern here in the Nat U. Hill room, and you will have 3 minutes, or raise your hand on Teams. All right, seeing none, may we please have a roll call vote?
Counselor Hawk? Counselor Decker?
Yes.
Counselor Crossley? Yes. Counselor Feidel?
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz?
Yes.
Counselor Henry?
Yes.
Counselor Iverson? Yes. Motion passes unanimous.
All right, thank you, Judge Stafford. All right, now I'm going to move back to our agenda here and go back to item number 9, which is the Aviation Department.
Council, I move to approve the Aviations Department request for the creation of account line 30006 contractual in Fund 4801-0000 Aviation Construction, and simultaneously approve an additional appropriation of $10,300 in the services category.
Second.
All right, thank you. We got a motion and a second. Laverty, the Aviation Director. Welcome online.
Hi,
Hello.
good evening. You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yes, in October, the Board of Aviation Commissioners approved Task Order 2406 for Wolpert to complete a pavement analysis. This is where we're getting pavement strength analysis for all of our individual movement surfaces on the airfield, both runways, all of our taxiways, and aircraft ramps. This allows us to get an idea of the current condition, estimated lifespan, and the weight-bearing capabilities of each surface as we look at maintaining these surfaces for now and into the future. So yes, we're requesting additional appropriation from the construction fund 4801 to the contractual for $10,300.
Okay, thank you. Looking to my left this time for any questions. Councilor Wiltz.
Yeah, I have no problem supporting this. You've got a lot going on, Mr. Laverty, out at the airport, and I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind giving us just a quick update on some of the projects that you've talked to us about with respect to some of the drainage issues and things like that that you have going on out there.
Yeah, so that was an ARPA project. That was approximately that's approximately a $5 million project using ARPA dollars to fund a pretty large project where we're going to be repairing, replacing underground stormwater drains that have aged in place over the years. Our pre-construction meeting actually kicks off this Thursday. So we're very excited for that. That was a big problem that we have with erosion and stormwater infrastructure at the airport. Before ARPA rolled around, we were kind of worried about where we were going to find the funding for such a big need. So we're very excited about that. As I said, pre-construction kicks off this Thursday. We have just about all of the permits that are needed for that project. We're waiting on a couple more from the FAA. We expect to have those by the end of this week or next week. And once we have those in hand, construction could start immediately. We're also in the beginning phases here of an FAA approved master plan process. This is an FAA funded program for approximately $600,000 that once completed will kind of give us the direction and planning to guide the airport and its future growth for the next 20 years. February 5th is going to be the first planning advisory committee for this master plan project, which will probably, the whole project should probably take 12 to 18 months to complete. And as I said, once completed, that'll be our guiding document and roadmap for the next 20 years. We're very excited for that. We have applications going in for using bipartisan infrastructure dollars to refurbish our air traffic control tower and a terminal design project, but those are still in the application phases as we speak now. But projects that are in motion right now, the master plan and the ARPA stormwater project.
Thank you.
All right. Looking to my right here, any questions or comments? Nope. Okay. All right. Now we are moving on to public comment. If you are wanting to make public comment on this item, please come forward to the Nat U Hill room, the lectern here. In the Nat U Hill room, you'll have 3 minutes, or raise your hand on Teams. And seeing none, may we go to a roll call vote?
Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Counselor Henry? Yes. Counselor Feidel?
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz?
Yes.
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Counselor Deckard? Yes. Counselor Hawk? Motion passes unanimous.
Thank you. We will move, thank you, Mr. Laverty. We will move on to item number 10A from the courts.
Council, I move to approve the court's request for the creation of account line 006 contractual and Fund 1213-0000 GAL CASA, and simultaneously approve an additional appropriation of $96,455 in the services category.
Second.
Do we have?
Abraham is online.
Okay. All right. Ms. Abraham, welcome. And it looks like you are muted. Yes, oh, there we go. Hello. Hi. We just need you to unmute.
She's not muted on her end.
TSD, can we help her unmute?
Hey, Elijah from TSD here. She has been made a presenter. Her mic isn't muted on our end.
Okay. So, Ms. Abraham, they are saying that it's on your end. Oh, looks like you're unmuted.
Muted? Okay, I'm on my husband's laptop, so it said I wasn't muted, but I started pushing buttons.
Technology. Welcome.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. Go ahead.
Okay, luckily Judge Stafford did the first one for me. So this one is a CASA grant that we received. Again, it's a pass-through grant that is awarded straight to the CASA through the auditor's office. And they did receive two different ones this year, a matching grant and a capacity grant. So I'm just asking for the council to appropriate both of those.
Okay, seems fair and easy there. All right, any questions to my right? No? Any questions to my left? Councilor Deckard.
I just have a comment, and I often make it in moments like this, but these grants that we get are massively huge for this county because the taxpayers of this county would struggle to replace these dollars if they did not exist. And they do huge, tremendous, wondrous things. I think in an age when we're now hearing about grants freezing and changes and other mixes and things that we'll talk about later tonight, the county's going to be more and more mindful of that. And I think it's good to tell our statewide elected officials as well as our congressional elected officials what these good things do and how they manifest and show up in our lives. And I'm not just pointing this one out. I'm saying if anytime you hear the word grant on our agenda, that is dollars coming into the community to do good things for which we could not replace. And the auditor's shaking her head because she knows and counts these, and it gives her nightmares at night, I'm sure. So anyway, I always like to draw that attention. Our departments are good about bringing these in. If they do not come in, that means that we got some hurt and some trouble. And I always like to point it out.
Yes, years ago, I was told that because of CASA, we're not required to have as many, to pay us for as much legal work because we're required to have representation there. Now, that's how it was explained to me years ago, but I don't believe this is a maybe thing. These are things that we are required to do, but that's something I learned years ago from Judge Galvin, so hopefully I have it right.
Great. Any other questions or comments from council? All right, seeing none, we are moving forward to with the public comment. If you have a public comment on this item, please come forward to the lectern here in the Nat U Hill room or raise your hand. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. And seeing no takers, we will move on to a roll call vote.
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Counselor Henry?
Yes.
Counselor Hawk?
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz?
Yes.
Counselor Feidel?
Yes.
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous.
All right,
Thank you.
we are at the time of our agenda where we usually take about a 5-minute recess. I will look to my council to see whether or not you are wanting to push through this, or would you like to take a 5-minute recess?
Fine.
Push through? Okay, well, we'll keep rolling or swimming like Dory. All right, we will now move to item 11, which is Youth Services Bureau.
Council, I move to approve the Youth Service Bureau's request to create account lines 20006 Safe Place Materials and 30058 Outreach, and simultaneously approve an additional appropriation of $3,000 in the supplies category and $6,800 in the services category for a total appropriation of $9,880.
Second.
Thank you. We got a motion and a second.
Do item B at the same time because you're going to de-appropriate.
That was for both A and B.
I just read A.
So it's two different funds.
So we have Deputy Director Vanessa Smith online. Welcome.
Hi, good evening, Council.
Hello.
Yes, we are actually here just to appropriate into the correct grant year and then simultaneously de-appropriate what was incorrectly appropriated into the 2024 grant year.
All right, thank you. Any questions on my right here? Nope. All right, any questions on my left? Okay. The only comment that I'll make is congratulations on your award. I saw State Senator Shelley Yoder gave you all an award, and that's awesome. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. All right. Now we will move forward with public comment on this item. If you want to make public comment, please come forward to the lectern here on the Nat U Hill Room or raise your hand via Teams. Seeing none, we will go to a roll call vote.
Counselor Feidel?
Yes.
Counselor Iverson? Yes. Counselor Henry? Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz? Yes. Counselor Hawk? Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous.
All right. And we will move on to item B.
Council, I move to approve the YSB's request in Fund 9103-9624, Project Safe Place, to de-appropriate $3,000 in the supplies category and $6,880 in the services category for a total de-appropriation of $9,880.
Oh, second. Sorry.
All right, we got a motion and a second here. Go ahead. Director Smith, you can go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's
yes,
okay.
I didn't.
It's okay, sorry.
Oh, yeah. So just to reiterate, yes, we appropriated it into the incorrect grant year. And so we're just asking that this now be de-appropriated out of the 2024 grant year.
All right, seems simple. All right, looking to my right for any questions, comments? None? Looking to my left? None? Okay. We will go ahead and move to public comment. If you have any comments, please come forward here to the Nat U Hill Room or raise your hand via Teams. And still seeing none. We will go ahead and go to a roll call vote.
Counselor Feidel?
Yes.
Counselor Henry? Counselor Deckard? Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz? I know. Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Counselor Hawk? Motion passes unanimous.
Now we will move to item C.
Council, I move to approve the Youth Service Bureau's request in Fund 4111-0000 Donations-BTCC, an additional appropriation of $3,500 in the services category.
Need a second?
Second.
All right. We got a motion and a second. And Ms. Schmidt, go ahead.
Thank you so much. This is actually work that has occurred through our prevention department with the Indiana Coalition Against Domestic Violence through what's called the Delta Ahead Project. And so for this work, we received payment for the $3,000. And then in addition to that, the other $500 is from the Indiana Youth Institute to pay for trauma training that is done by our BTCC trainers, which stands for Building a Thriving and Compassionate Community. And so we are here to just ask that we appropriate those, that $3,500 funds.
Okay. And this time I'll look to my left for any questions or comments. No? Looking to my right, seeing some shaking heads. No? Okay. We'll move on to public comment. If you have any public comment to be made on this item, please come forward to the Nat U Hill room or raise your hand via Teams. You'll have 3 minutes. And continuing to see none, may we please have a roll call vote?
Iverson?
Yes.
Counselor Fidel? Yes. Counselor Hawk?
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz? Yes. Counselor Henry? Yes. Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous.
Thank you so much for presenting. Thank you. Next up, we will move to item number 12.
Council, I move to open for discussion Resolution 2025-05, a resolution opposing Indiana Senate Bill 1.
Second.
All right. And I'm looking to Ms. Turner King here. And this is the one where I'm going to hold ourselves to our commitment, since we want to make sure that we're getting through the agenda here. So I'm going to look at and have Councilor Iverson as pro tem to help us keep on task. So we can set this discussion for 10 minutes so we can move expeditiously to the rest of the agenda items.
So this afternoon, I was asked to draft a resolution in opposition of Senate Bill 1, and this is the working draft of it. Do you want me to read the resolution?
Yes.
So it's Resolution 2025-5, Resolution in Opposition of Senate Bill 1. Whereas the Monroe County Council is statutorily authorized to view or review the county's fiscal matters, determine proper fiscal policies, and set priorities for the allocation and expenditure of county funds. And whereas the Monroe County Council, when fulfilling those statutory duties, consider the availability and amount of state revenue sources when adopting the county's annual budget, fixing tax rates for the county in order to raise funds to meet the county's budgetary needs, appropriating public funds, and establishing salaries for all county employees. And whereas Indiana legislators are considering Senate Bill 1, which in its current draft will significantly amend property tax deductions by increasing deductions on homesteads, rolling back property tax bills to the 2022 levels, and capping growth after the 2022 tax bill. And whereas Senate Bill 1, if enacted, will have significant negative fiscal impacts on local county government, including Monroe County revenues, which are estimated to be reduced by at least $25 million in the first year. And whereas the Monroe County Council recognizes that such a reduction in funding will significantly impair or impact the county's ability to maintain and provide local services, including those related to jail, schools, fire districts, and territories, law enforcement, courts, and governmental functions, causing a compounding ripple effect through Monroe County, negatively impacting public health, economic opportunities, and the quality of all Monroe County residents. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Monroe County Council that we express strong opposition to Senate Bill 1 and respectfully request legislators to not support the enactment of such, especially given the negative fiscal impact on the county's revenues and its ability to maintain and provide adequate resources and services to the constituents of Monroe County. So that's the resolution. Thoughts, amendments, concerns?
Thank you. I will look to my colleagues here to see if there's any provided feedback. I know I've been talking to State Senator Shelley Yoder about this as well, and her comment is that we need to make sure that we are doing our due diligence and getting the voices of our Monroe County residents and how this will detrimentally impact our budgets and things that we are able to do. And this will have a trickle-down effect in the people that we serve here in Monroe County. It is a very serious bill. I can say more, but I will not. So I will look to my councils or council members here to see what they would have to say. So I'll start over here to my left.
Thank you. I'd like to thank council leadership for requesting this and putting it on the agenda. It's necessary, and I can only say that on first glance it looks complete and no comments there. I just want to make sure that this gets communicated to the legislature in some way. I mean, we can make a resolution and it goes into the record, and I feel like that's appropriate given the severity of impacts. But I would just ask if there is a way to transmit that follow along.
And yes, that is a concern. And to Ms. Turner King, that is something that we would be able to send up to the folks in Indy.
My proposal would be to amend that now therefore be it resolved clause and break it down into specific action items. So 1, that the council expresses strong opposition. 2, that we request legislators not to support it. 3, that this be directed to be provided to legislators. And I think there's also some previous concerns shared with me that as a 4th item, we should maybe call on the community to also express opposition if they're in agreement.
Councilor Decker?
Yeah, I appreciate very much this coming before us. Look, I'll be honest, I'm not the first person to think that legislative bodies such as ours should spend an inordinate amount of time on resolutions when they've got other work before them. But I'm going to be as honest as I can about this, in that this bill as written, and it's in the fiscal impact. I mean, they put it right in there. Every county, what they will lose, our county, and that's our schools, our cities, our towns, our townships, fire, police, you name it. If you point at anything that's got a government badge or breath or anything, you will lose, on average, a year, $35 million. $35 million divided among all those entities. Now, I will say, I'll be the first person to say, I walk around this county and I will look at people and I watch for people on how cost and affordability are affecting them. And, you know, sometimes I sneak around the West Side Kroger and get my groceries, but kind of pay attention to people. And I sometimes call it the misery index. I was talking to a city council member, Isabel Piedmont Smith, about this the other day. The misery index, that people do look at high bills. They do look at inflation. They do look at tough things that are affecting them. And then when they look at their property taxes, they want relief. I understand that, and amen. The issue is here, in comparison to some things with our state and federal colleagues, our people are on the front end of doing the service. I mean, my heavens, right now as I sit here, I've never seen so many badges in my life, and those are our heroes that go out and do the work. When something bad happens, a siren goes off, they respond to that, and whether you're in Steinsville, Indiana, or Unionville, or downtown Bloomington, somebody from one of these entities shows up. It's not a state senator that shows up. It's not the governor that shows up. And so these dollars, which are nice to have relief for people, they actually have impact on things that we're doing here. I know people get mad, DR, libertarian, whatever, and think we're wasting time. But good heavens, those folks right there aren't wasting any time. And so when we look at these things, whether you're an Ellisville Town Board member, you are a school teacher, you're whatever, this is real dollars. And I am appreciative that we're voting on this. This one's a killer. This one will kill local government and every service we have. The ones you like, the ones you hate, the ones that you're not so sure about, and the ones that you adore, it'll kill it. And I would not be passionate for this if it were not so bad. And I appreciate us voting on this. I hope that this gets amended. I will tell you, senators, House members, you could cut it in half and then cut that into quarters, and you're still going to be killing us. That's how bad it is. And I hope it's a joke. I hope it goes away. But this isn't time to be kind of mousing around the subject. Our next item is something that people are going to talk to us about, wages and need. this makes that, pardon me, damn near impossible to even figure out how I get out the door tonight and can guarantee services tomorrow. So, Madam President, I apologize for my passion, but this one has been on my mind since November because people talked about these things. Now we have a fiscal impact, and the fiscal impact's name is killer. And it's going to kill local government and schools and a lot of other good things.
All right. Thank you. We got a few more minutes left here in the conversation, so I'm going to look to my right here to see if anybody has any comments on this. Councilor Henry.
Thank you, Madam President. In respect of everyone else's time, I'll be brief. First, I want to thank the auditor's office and the county legal for putting something together so quickly, especially when the sands are shifting under us right now by the minute as to what is coming in, not just from the state, but also from federal decision-making, which will impact our offices, the grant programs we've discussed this evening. So thank you for that work. What we have before us is obviously a working draft. The next time we meet, I'm sure there will be things to add and amend to this document, but thank you for the start. I want to be pretty clear that our budget is under attack in a partisan way, and I don't want to talk about it in an abstraction. Because when we talk about an abstraction, of course this affects community members regardless of partisanship, but these are not the majority party in Indianapolis from the Mitch Daniels era or the Dick Lugar era. We're dealing with a very different partisanship that is coming down in our county. We are being kneecapped in one corner of our legs by our state house right now, and it must be said, kneecapped by our neighbors across the street when it comes to the involuntary annexation that is pursued, which will affect our budget. We are also expecting federal impacts through grants, and that's before we get to inflationary pressures from tariffs. I mean, I don't know how many more legs we have to be kneecapped here. But as we negotiate this space, I mean, there are people that are pushing for this agenda, and it is punishment on counties like ours that work really hard to use the tax dollars we have to put to work for our community and take care of one another. And we need to put names to that. And I know that doesn't necessarily work in the negotiation space as we try to tamper down these bills, but that is this is an artifice. This is not a choice. This is not because of an economic downturn. This is a creation of the State House that we're wrestling with. I share in Councilmember Deckert's passion, but this is not an accident. These are choices that are being made on us, and we do need to say that forcefully back to Indianapolis. Thank you.
Councilor Hall.
Right. While I understand the concern being shared here by many who have not been following along all the years that others of us have, but we've been noticing and understanding that at the state level, they were making preparation to try to move from reliance so heavily on property tax and moving it over to the income tax. So right now, you're talking about, oh, this is how much we will lose. But you know, at any time you're doing a budget management, you have to say, well, we're going to take it from this column and we're going to get more in this column. And so the whole point is for us to be looking at the big picture. And what I would expect we're going to see is Senator Holdman, of course, knows this is not going to go through the way it's written. I mean, he knows that. And he welcomes suggestions. There's a difference between suggestions and finding fault, because if you want something from somebody, you don't go after them and being, you want to make sure that you're a part of the solution. So the purpose is, of this whole exercise is that we've been told by the people that paying the tax that they have seen how much that the tax payment has gone up in property tax, and there's trying to be made an adjustment. Now, do I think this is the right plan or the right numbers? Well, of course not. But remember that this $25 million, they're saying the county would lose. Now, they're not saying county government. They're saying the schools, the town, the city, all the taxing units, the total. It's still a big, big number. And then that number jumps up to, it could go up to as much as $36 million by 2028. Well, a lot of very bright people are working on these numbers at the state level. They expect to hear from us. What I hope they'll hear from us is suggestions of how we can work together to say what's the right mix, what's the right, sweet spot to give the taxpayer some relief from property tax, but without just absolutely knocking them over with the income tax. And there's got to be some place in between. I mean, we've looked at the House Bill 1402. I don't think that's going to go through the way it's being presented, but there's parts of 1402 having to do with splitting up the ability to raise income tax, which has been worked on by the state and throughout the state for a very long time. That's why we have the GIS, getting the GIS updates so that there would be a way to say, this person who lives on such and such street in such and such township, if they pay income tax, it will stay right there in their area. So that means in 1402, they're saying the county has a right to raise an income tax, and it's tied to different buckets, 4 different buckets. And the city then could do an income tax, and that would be on top of the county's taxes. And the town could raise the tax, then that would all be income. But you see, it's not covering what you'd have to look at is how many units will no longer have the ability to raise the taxes. Now, that doesn't mean that real estate taxes, property taxes going away altogether. It just means they put a new floor on it and raising it from a new floor. I'm not saying we shouldn't be very concerned. I think we should be very concerned. The people of the state think we should be very concerned. If you talk to David Boderoff from AIC, and I hope all of you who are able to go will go and listen to Dave Boderoff, who will go and listen to Ryan, and listen to all those folks so that they can help us understand how we can better assist the state in making sure that all of our residents are being well taken care of. And I wouldn't want to be the one up there trying to decide which bucket. But many of us remember when they changed the whole income tax way that was going to work, where there used to be Cadgett counties and Coet counties, and they changed all those different buckets. We had to learn a new way. We used to do the welfare budget here, the Department of Child Services, and they took that away, and so they started covering that at the state level. But this would be something entirely different if they remove our revenue and didn't give us an opportunity to at least replace some of it. Then we would have a major problem on our hands.
And so I don't.
And I'm ready to say goodbye on that.
Okay, yeah,
yes.
I was about to say,
I
because
hope
as a
you're
point
listening.
of order, we've already said we were going to try to hold our feet to the fire here, and we are a little bit past our time here. So I would say that we are in a FAFO find out moment. And if you don't know what that means, then you need to look it up. The other thought is this is us trying to make sure that we as electeds are holding ourselves and the folks that occupy the seats in Indianapolis, we are sending a message to this. And I would hope that they are smart enough to know that we mean business, and I hope that they would know what we are doing. And I think this is why we are doing this. So I would say, it sounds like the amendment would be to add some of the things that Councilor Wilt said mentioned, and then obviously, of course, explaining what we need to do in terms of making the public aware of this and contacting them. And then could this be something that is ready for our February 11th
Yes,
meeting?
so
Okay.
I will make amendments and have it ready for the February 11th meeting. And I'm also going to work with the auditor who's getting more specific numbers. And we're hoping to learn more at AIC next week.
This anymore would be Christmas miracle, because January feels like it's been 25 weeks already. All right. And we are moving on. Do we need to do public comment? Okay. All right. So since that was a discussion, we're just going to go ahead. We got our marching orders. And again, to keep moving forward for the bigger discussion that we're going to have here, we're going to move on to item number 13.
Council, I'd like to open for discussion the contract for Financial Solutions Group, also called FSG.
Second.
Ms. Turner-King.
Hello? Okay, there it goes. I sent this afternoon a draft contract to council for FSG. I'll try to get it displayed. In essence, we're updating our contract. The big amendments to the contract this year is that instead of having a 1-year contract, we'd like to make it a 2-year contract. And then we specifically added some clauses about how they would attend LTF meetings and provide specific guidance on pending legislation. And so you should have gotten this draft this afternoon, and I wanted to make sure you were okay with the wording and or have any changes that need to be amended. What I would like to do is get this to Greg Garitas for his approval, and then it will come back to you on the 11th for resolution and then go to the commissioners for final approval of the contract.
Okay. All right. Any questions or comments for Ms. Turner-King from the council? Councilor Iverson.
It is my understanding that given some of the financial headwinds that many counties are facing, that FSG services are in high demand. Do we have any reason to believe that this contract will not be able to be met due to that demand?
In speaking to Mr. Garitas a few weeks ago, I don't believe so. I think his only concern was maybe if we had monthly reoccurring LTF meetings, but I also think that there's an option for them to attend those virtually, which might alleviate his concerns.
And they're willing to do those meetings virtually? And that would help save county funds that we wouldn't have to pay for transportation and...
Correct. We would be paying for their services the moment they left their office plus mileage.
Understood. Great.
And you can see kind of it outlines on the screen what they'd be willing to attend. So it's attendance in long-term finance committee meetings. They will come tentatively in February to meet and review year-end results and provide start of year expectations. In April, they'll review first quarter. In July, they'll review June 30th results. September, they'll start working on proposed budgets and then hopefully be able to provide final thoughts on our budget prior to adoption in October.
Councilor Hawk.
Yes, I think it's going to be very difficult to come up with a long-term finance plan until we find out what's going to happen at the state. Are they moving from property tax to income tax? Is that just going to be a big push for this year, but they won't really do it until next year or the year thereafter? Is this just scare us all to death so that we'll quit spending so much money? I don't know, but I think it would be difficult for any long-term finance committee to make any kind of real inroads until we see where the money's coming in and where it's going out. But I mean, I'm willing to meet whenever. I've been meeting on this for weeks now. So I just don't want us to expect real answers by February.
I don't think anybody would think that we would have, because, I mean, the state legislation is in until April. And then I would also assume, judging by how they are rolling right now, we might even be called, they might do a special session. So I think the idea is to get us up and rolling, to have the conversations in February. That's the biggest thing, because we definitely want to make sure we're starting off in February. But this is a start for us to keep moving forward with a lot of things. So.
And to go to Councilor Hawk's comment, in our meeting with FSG, they basically said, there are too many bills that propose revenue reductions, so their beginning of the year advice is to do not take any drastic actions with significant fiscal impact.
Right.
Councilor Decker.
I think if ever there was a contract that we needed more than ever, it's probably this one right now. And if you were not an FSG believer, you sure are. I would ask if legal would consider, and Ms. Turner King, this may need to be a discussion that you have, but Madam President, I would ask that since FSG's function is so integral with us and what we do, because we're literally the fund that's figuring out this scare from on high, if you could be part of that contact liaison for this, I just think that makes sense, since Mr. Cockerell's, that's not his primary assignment. And we may be in vital time making quick time decision midstream on the present budget we're operating under. I don't mean to scare people, but whatever that is going on, that may need to happen if FSG comes in May and says, well, they want you all doing this or that. We may have to be figuring out things pretty quick. And that means continued conversation through you.
Good point. Okay. So.
What did she say?
Next week, am I going to AIC?
Right.
I am looking at trying to fit that into a week full of meetings already. So I'm going to try, but I can't commit to doing so.
All right. So sounds like
I will finalize some changes and then bring it back on the 11th I'll bring back a resolution on the 11th.
Okay. Oh, sorry, Councilor Wiltz.
Whoa. Just want to make sure, since this is sort of a late ad, haven't talked about it much prior. The redlining that you've done on this contract wording.
Everything in red is something that I added to the base FSG contract.
This was from previous year?
Correct.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. And I agree with Councilor Deckard about the contact change.
Okay. And so is there anything else you need from us?
Not until the 11th.
Okay. All right. I appreciate that. Thank you. Now, the final item that we have here, we are opening up the discussion for the presentation discussion in regards to the Sheriff Merit Deputy proposed salary amendment ordinance. There's a couple of things that I want to add to this. As a reminder, this is a discussion, and usually when we have discussion, we are not, we don't allow public comment. However, I do want to say, for us as council members, we need to make sure that we are giving the Sheriff's Department our undivided attention. And I also kindly ask if you are having any questions, for them to get through their presentation to write down your questions. And after they are all done, then we would be able to ask said questions. I also want to say too here, and this is going forward, leadership, in order to make sure that we are better streamlining the meetings here going forward, and this isn't just to, this is just a general comment. Any of our departments, when we are having discussions, we sent this out through council, or council staff sent this out to departments. Usually the presentation is between 15 minutes. Now, if there is a need for a longer conversation out of respect for the elected official in that particular department, which is Sheriff Martin, I, as council president, would be able to allow that to happen. But once again, for them to be able to get through their conversation and discussion with us, it is a much needed conversation. It is very much a highly anticipated conversation. I just ask that we write down our questions and let's allow them to go ahead and make their presentation. So without further ado, we can have the Sheriff's Department come up. Thank you.
I was gonna say.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Nathan Peach. I'm a detective sergeant with the Sheriff's Office. I'd like to start by thanking the County Council for creating the collective bargaining unit for the deputies of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. We would also like to thank the public for their attention this evening. We're here to address a matter of profound importance that directly impacts the operational capacity of the Sheriff's Office and by extension, the safety and security of our community, which is our ability to attract and retain highly qualified law enforcement personnel. Recent developments in neighboring law enforcement agencies marked by their efforts in recruitment and retention by increasing pay scales have placed the Sheriff's Office at a distinct disadvantage. This disparity threatens our capacity to maintain the necessary staffing levels, leading to tangible consequences, such as delayed response times, an inability to robustly respond to emergencies due to the number of available deputies, diminished officer well-being, and an increased sense of fatigue and disengagement among our deputies. The packet you received shows that as of January 1st, 2025, the Monroe County Sheriff's Office has the lowest pay scales compared to the Bloomington Police Department, the Indiana University Police Department, and the Monroe County Community School Corporation Police. We are in 4th place. We understand that the foundation of a secure and prosperous community is rooted in well-resourced and well-supported public safety. The Monroe County Sheriff's Office ability to prevent crime, respond to emergencies, and foster a strong community relationship hinges upon recruitment and retention of skilled and dedicated deputies. Should we fail to address this mounting challenge, we risk weakening the effectiveness of our operations, which will ultimately compromise the safety of our deputies, but more importantly, the very citizens we are sworn to protect. We would also like to extend our sincere gratitude to the Council for its decisive action taken in 2022 when you voted to approve a much-needed increase in compensation for our deputies. Your leadership in that moment demonstrated a clear commitment to supporting those who serve on the front lines of public safety, and we deeply appreciate your continued partnership. However, the challenges we face today are evolving, and it's incumbent upon us to once again adapt and respond and ensure that our agency remains equipped to meet the needs of our community. We look forward to your continued support in addressing these critical issues, which will ensure that the Sheriff's Office retains the necessary personnel and resources to uphold its mission. By doing so, we will not only preserve the safety and well-being of Monroe County, but also strengthen the trust between law enforcement and the community that we serve. Others in the collective bargaining unit will put a finer point on some of these issues, and I thank you for your time and attention, most importantly, your commitment to public safety within Monroe County.
Lieutenant Dillon, Patrol Supervisor. Our primary goal of this request is to maintain benefit parity with local and regional agencies that we compete with for applicants. Previously, unique benefits offered by the Sheriff's Office, specifically take-home vehicles and specialized equipment like tasers and drones, are now standard with nearly every local and regional agency. Now that most agencies have similar equipment, our ability to attract applicant attention with our hiring efforts has been somewhat diminished in recent years, leaving salary as the most noticeable differentiator. Applicant behavior has required strategic recruitment efforts with an increased reliance on attention-grabbing first-year salaries and explanation of our overall benefit package to stand out to prospective applicants. Applicants are often less influenced by the long-term benefits during the decision-making phase and more by the immediate financial incentives, specifically starting salaries and expedited pay increases during the early years with the agency. There's a competitive market for law enforcement officers, with the overall pool of law enforcement officers shrinking and motivated or experienced officers in high demand. Prospective applicants and lateral transfers are aware of their market value and compare salaries across agencies before they even begin to apply. Agencies with lower starting salaries are often ruled out early in the process, with new recruits focusing on immediate earnings and lateral transfers with experience seeking the long-term financial gains that they can have by maximizing their market value and by leveraging the financial incentives for their prior law enforcement experience and specialized certifications that they often bring with them. Retention implications are also tied to regional starting salary increases, with experienced deputies being vulnerable to active and passive offers from competing agencies if starting salaries begin to outpace what they're currently earning at their agency, ultimately eroding loyalty and reducing retention. The public perception of a well-publicized competitive starting salary can enhance our agency's reputation and attract applicants who might otherwise consider private sector or alternative career paths within the local workforce.
Corporal Josh Fuller. I oversee the field training unit and also help with the hiring process. As you know, a couple of the guys have already mentioned the BPD salary being the most high in the local area. Just to put it in perspective, BPD starts brand new guys day one, green officers at $81,874 versus Monroe County starts our guys $72,780. which is just over $9,000 difference on new guys. If they're hiring a lateral transfer, they add a $5,000 sign-on bonus to that, which is just $390 under what we pay our 8-year experienced deputies at, which is in the $82,000 range. Sergeant Dillon has gone over the application. I kind of want to touch on our last hiring process. So in September of 24, whenever we did our last hiring process, we had 54 applicants. After weeding through the applications, we ended up with 31 that we invited to the written and physical test. On the day of the physical test and written test, as well as the interview, only 15 of those showed up. So we were already a third of what we had to start with. During the testing, we lost 6 applicants to the physical agility testing, and we lost 2 in the written. At this point, we took 6 applicants to the oral interview, which one of those did not make that. We ended up with 5 that we took to the merit board for approval. After we got the merit board approved all 5, one of the applicants went to BPD before we could make him an offer, which was a lateral transfer. We also had one that went to IUPD as well, leaving us with 3. We recently, in this hiring process, hired 2 of those on January 20th. Since our last meeting, at that point, we had 3 openings. After the last time we had met, 2 of our full-time guys have left for other departments, putting us at 5 vacancies. With these 2 we just hired, we are still at 3 openings, just like we were when we met in November. I also want to bring up that a new officer that's hired off the street with no experience is approximately 1 year from being able to be a benefit to the Sheriff's Department after training and sending them through the Law Enforcement Academy, as well as field training. Field training is usually a new applicant will put 500 to 700 hours in before they are cleared to work the road. And lost my spot. Since January 23, the Monroe County Sheriff's Office has spent $516,000 on training and hiring new officers. This shows in your packet, shows a breakdown of that, including whenever they're sent to the Law Enforcement Academy, their pay continues for 4 months, and they are not any help or any benefit to us on the road whenever they're attending the Law Enforcement Academy.
Thank you. My name is Jeff Brown, deputy with the Sheriff's Office, as well as the bargaining committee. I am one of the laterals that they're talking about. I came to you guys from Greene County with 6 years of experience, and with that I brought instructor certification in physical tactics, which is a state requirement for all of our officers to go through every year. So it's a cost savings we've, and as well as field training experience from Greene County to Monroe, as well as Spillman, which is our in-car computer system that we utilize. So cost savings and time, I was the golden egg. Corporal Fuller is the same. We've recently hired several other deputies from other agencies that offer just the same, as we're cost savings by the lateral, because we want to be here for the leading edge of policing. We enjoy the community as well as the pay and the benefits. That's what a lot of the laterals come to. And so I'm just an example of what a lateral can offer in cost savings and time, so we can better manage our caseloads and give all the citizens that require our attention for their need at that point in time, versus put it on the back burner and maybe it doesn't get investigated as well due to our caseload and personnel management issues.
Thank you. My name is Kyle Molden. I'm a sergeant, patrol supervisor for our second shift. Just wanted to discuss, some of the actual practical importance of what we're asking for, because with these vacancies, there's a direct impact very negatively on our operations. Our shifts all operate with an established absolute bare minimum. For our first and third shifts, that's a total of 4 deputies, counting supervisors. And on second shift, it's 1 more, it's 5. If you think about the sheer size and population of Monroe County, that means that we can maybe handle 2 at the most in-progress events at any given time. And that can be a real challenge. With all of our vacancies that we've had to operate very, very frequently, and that's in some of the data that's been provided to you, of when we are operating at our shift minimum, especially on first and third shift. Now, our second shift, of which I'm a member of, it's our busiest shift by far. We have a higher minimum, and we've tried to divert as much as we can our resources to that shift. So the vacancies have been primarily felt on first and third shift, and for the most part, we have operated second shift with full staffing for the past few years. Even still, at our absolute minimum on second shift, we're barely above water many days. And if we want to look not just in terms of filling the vacancies we have, but at some point, we might need to have a discussion of actually increasing the size of our organization to catch up with our actual needs. But we can't do any of that until, we can't even have that discussion until we can backfill the spots that we have that have been sitting open for so long. Just to give you some actual examples to think about, on second shift, fairly recently, there was a pretty violent call for help where a family member was calling 911 in rural northeast part of the county, needing help because one of their family members had their hands around the victim's neck and was yelling for them to die. And we were able to send 1 deputy to that call after freeing them up from something else. Now, as very often been discussed in these types of situations, we talk about how domestic violence can be one of the most dangerous things for officers to respond to, and that's true. As it turned out in this case, the suspect ended up fleeing before the deputy arrived, but what that meant is that we had no one to look for them. And so the deputy that responded was able to tend to the victim, take a report, but we didn't have anyone available to actually try to locate the suspect and make sure that there wasn't any further violence and to hold them accountable. And there's many other examples of situations, where we're responding to situations that either have to wait entirely until we can free someone available, or we have to send, fewer resources than we really probably should and what our citizens deserve and would expect, because we just don't have the people. And if you want to expand beyond that to not just operational concerns, but talking about, the need to grow the department, the sheriff's office here is kind of behind the curve in a lot of other respects as well. Both the Bloomington Police and the Indiana University Police have a dedicated training coordinator position. we don't have the staffing to do something like that. We certainly want to hold our deputies to the highest standards and make sure that they're trained at the highest level, but we're not able to dedicate anyone to that full time like some of the other local agencies are able to. And then there's all sorts of other considerations as well in terms of talking about future growth, that again, these are conversations that we can't even have because we can't fill our operational needs, but there are countless examples of jurisdictions our size or even smaller that have things like intelligence-led policing units that actually have teams of dedicated officers that are deployed proactively to address crime trends and focus all their efforts on mitigating things like that. So whenever the trends show, just for example, an uptick in burglaries at a given time in a given place, they can be deployed specifically to address that problem. We don't have the capability to dedicate officers full time to anything like that. We can try to direct our resources when available, but if calls come out, then we're not able to focus our efforts in those types of ways. And that ability to respond, things like that's something that the Department of Justice has long recognized as being a facet of modern progressive law enforcement agency in the 21st century. And there's countless other examples as well of responding to community concerns. It's something that's highlighted in President Obama's presidential task force on 21st century policing, talking about the importance of being able to be responsive to community concerns and relate, to things like that. So whenever people call in with speeders in their neighborhoods at the same time every day, school buses that are reporting that people are running past their school bus stop arms regularly, we would love to be able to proactively, respond to those areas and have deputies in wait to try to address those issues. But whenever we're trying to play catch up and responding to the incoming 911 calls for help, it's very challenging for us to be able to do both with our current staffing. Again, that's not even what the purpose of this conversation is, but it's a conversation we can't even have until we up the the pay and get our current positions filled, so we look at expanding our capabilities to provide better service to our residents. And then the final thing that we'll close you on here is other specialized units, as a sheriff's office. Right now we have 480 people with active criminal arrest warrants in our community. And for a lot of them, honestly, we don't have any idea where they are, and we have no one dedicated full-time for looking for them. Lots of other agencies, including, just as an example, Morgan County to our north, actually have dedicated warrant team. We try to serve the court's warrants, when we can, but in terms of actually dedicating people to be actively looking for these people, we don't have anyone doing that right now. Another example, specialized unit, there were about 58 people, according to the Indiana State Department of Health, that overdosed in Monroe County in 2023. We have no one dedicated full-time toward narcotics enforcement. Lots of agencies will have a narcotics unit to try to address the ongoing problems that we're having with fentanyl and these other dangerous drugs in our communities. And again, we do the best we can, commendable job by all of our deputies, but in terms of dedicating someone full-time towards something like that, we don't have the resources right now. There's all sorts of other examples we could give as well, but I just wanted to open your mind to thinking that we can't even start actually trying to aggressively handle some of the problems that we have in our community because we're still trying to play catch up with just handling those emergency calls. And we really thank you for hearing us out today. We understand that especially with changing circumstances, budget concerns, you have an obligation not just to our money, but to all of the other county departments and their employees as well. And we brought a video just to share with you as well to try to show you some of why we believe that it's just a little bit different whenever it comes to the sheriff's deputies and the role that they fill in your community. Those of you that have never been on a ride-along or really got to experience a fraction of what it is that a deputy sees on any given shift, we're hoping that maybe that by sharing this video with you, it could open your eyes if you've not had the opportunity to consider it. So we just ask that you watch it and keep some of that in mind. So thank you.
Put your hands on the hoodie. Put your hands behind your back. Put your hands.
The audio doesn't seem to be coming through pretty well. Give me 1 second. I think I've got it. Give me 1 second. Nope.
I'm out with one party at row 12.
Not entirely sure what is going on right now. I apologize.
Well, while they're trying to figure that out, I'm just going to ask for about 60 seconds here for three things before the sheriff comes up and closes this thing out, because I know we're under a time limit here. But the first thing I would tell you, I'm in my 42nd year of law enforcement here. I spent the majority of my time at the Indiana State Police, 29 years, and I've been involved with several agencies. And I would tell you, I want you to look in the back of that room, and there are people that are not here right now because they're out there. And I will tell you this, I will put this group of individuals up against any group of individuals that I've served with in terms of competency, dedication, and their absolute willingness to go out there every day and do what they've got to do to do their job and do it well. The second thing I would like to do is invite each and every one of you, and congratulations to the new council members. I would invite each of you to come to the jail and do a walkthrough and see what Sheriff Marte has accomplished in just 2 years. Actually, we were way ahead of schedule with what we accomplished in there. But I would also invite you to go on a ride-along with any of these officers. We'll be happy to host you. And I will tell you this, you better strap in, because you're going for a ride that you won't soon forget, because they hump the entire time from call to call to call. And I think it would be a very eye-opening experience for you. And I know that I'm not telling you guys anything you don't already to know. My third ask here is, I think there are some deputies back here that came prepared to just address you with some concerns. I know we're under a time limit, but they've been here for 2.5 hours. I would respectfully ask for you, if there's anybody back here that wants to take this microphone for a minute or two, that you permit them to do that, so they can at least have their voices heard, because they've been very patient, and that's my final ask here before the sheriff closes out for us.
I want to say the video is ready to share now, if you guys still want to put it on.
I'm out with one party at row 12.
Stop!
What?
Put your hands on the hood of that car. Put your hands behind your back. Put your hands behind your back. Don't move. Face away from me. Put your hands behind. I got this hand. I got this hand. Gun! Just. Jesus Christ. Stand by. Let me see your hands. Get on your hands. Go brown. Get out of the way. Get his hand. I got his hand. I got his hand. Get your hands out. You're gonna be paid. You shouldn't. Get your hands out. I got a hand. We got it. Get out of the car. Hell no. Show me your hands. Southeast of the property. Put your hands on top of your head.
What is this for?
Put your hands behind your back.
What is this for?
On Harmony Road, speeds 45 to the Moco food store.
Get away! Get away!
Get away! Get away from the car!
County starts at 10:52. It's occupied. It's slumped over the wheel.
Hey, come on. Hey, wake up.
No. What's your name, brother?
You should have let me out. Why?
Will you give me your hand? There you go, buddy. Come on. Come on. I got you. Now watch your back, buddy. Stand up for me. There you go, buddy. It's okay. It's okay.
Blow that in his nose. There he is. Hey.
County 19, 1050 PI. I'm in.
My name is Gunnar Ortlieb, and I'm a corporal with the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. I've been with the Sheriff's Office since 2022, though I've been a resident of this great county since 2017. In my time as a law enforcement officer, and especially as a deputy sheriff, I have seen firsthand the crucial role that our deputies hold in making our county a productive, pleasurable, and most importantly, a safe place to live and work. Among the many opportunities that I've been provided at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, there are two which I wish to speak with you today. First is a field training officer for our agency, and the second is a member of our community engagement division. As a field training officer, I bear witness to the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to the recruiting process and in the ensuing training that we as a unit provide to the newest and often most eager members of our department. I often joke that as an FTO, I am essentially installed as a professional question answerer These questions not only come from the recently hired probationary deputies in the course of their training, but also from prospective candidates that are considering future employment with the Sheriff's Office. These questions always include the desire for information on our compensation package, both in terms of benefit time, but most importantly, as these other deputies have already spoken, in terms of financial compensation. In the highly competitive field that law enforcement recruitment has become, our offerings are certainly compared and contrasted to that of our neighboring police agencies, with monetary compensation being one of the highest points of analysis. On several documented occasions within the last hiring process, a deficit in salary when compared to the offerings of our neighboring agencies have caused otherwise well-qualified candidates to divert their course from MCSO and proceed with other opportunities. Should these retractions in our hiring pool continue, I fear it could lead to a larger manpower shortage and a lower quality of entry-level deputy. This extends to the length of the training process and could, in total, decrease the overall morale and efficacy of our deputies, given less availability for much-needed days off, vacations, and specialty training. Quickly, I want to speak with you about the involvement that I have with our Community Outreach Division, which aims to engage all facets of our community in a non-enforcement capacity, from handing out copious amounts of candy at trunk-or-treat events, speaking with groups of elderly residents regarding their susceptibility to fraudulent phone calls. The list goes on. Despite this wide array of individuals, one thing remains the same in my interactions with these individuals, and that's that they always and consistently express their great gratitude for the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. Be it in a time of crisis, a medical emergency, a victim of a crime, they've made clear to me and my peers that they rest easy knowing that MCSO will be there for them. These interactions are the ones that bring light to what can at times be a relatively dark and troubling path in law enforcement. I stand before you today very proud to be a part of such an exemplary organization. It is my belief that the consideration of tonight's proposal will allow for the very best men and women that we already have to not only be retained, but to continue to recruit people of like mind and quality in the future. In doing this, this will allow for us to continue furthering our mission, which is to provide the most professional, effective, and courteous police service possible at all times and with every endeavor. I thank you.
Counsel, before I make my closing statement, would you like to ask questions first?
I would say if you want to give your closing statement.
So I want to thank you very much to allowing these deputies to give you their perspective and what they're asking and why they're asking. I could tell you that when I first came here 2 years ago, you know, I quickly observed how hard they work and how outnumbered they are. And we're at a point now that I assure you, I really appreciate you taking the time and giving the latitude to explain to you what they're facing, because I wanted you to hear from them specifically because they are the ones out there day in and day out. So I do know that you give me the courtesy so I could explain to you what we're going through. I truly appreciate that. But one of the things I want you to hear from them as well. They are held to a very high standard. They have pride in what they do. They do as much as they can for what they have. They truly do. And at the point that we are now, I don't want to lose any more people. I just don't. It's not fair to them. It's not fair to the community that we serve. And I can't remember which deputy said it best, that we could do a whole lot more. We know we could do a whole lot more, but we just can't. But to be fair to the council, we can't come and ask you to increase the department, which we know we should be at this point because the population has grown, until we actually full staff at this point. So I understand that as well. So I thank you very much. The last thing I will say, from the point that you make the decision, well, let me backtrack. One thing that the council did mention that I totally agree, to have a separate proposal for the 4 executive staff / upper senior staff. And we will comply with that because I understand why the thought process for having a separate proposal for the senior staff. I get that, and we'll work with you on that. The last thing I want to ask you, please, from the point that that they presented to you to the point that you get to make your decision, it's going to be a lapse of time. okay? I really ask you to try to remember some of the things that you heard today and some of the things you saw in that video. And if we need to come back and talk to you again, we have not an iota of a problem doing that, because you have a big decision and a tough decision to make, and I get that 100%. Public safety for Monroe County is a very, very, for us, and I know for you as well, for the community, is very important. Thank you for the time. If you have questions, by all means, we're prepared to answer them.
Great. Thank you so much for you all taking the time and educating us and really showing and proving what it is that why you are asking for that and as well. I know we probably got lots of questions. So I will actually kick off our question here. I'm sorry, I was taking notes as well as you all were talking. And you have mentioned in September of 24, you have 54 apps. Out of 54 applications, 31 were invited and 15 showed up. My question is, when those, I'm curious, when those 15 that didn't, or the people that didn't show up, is it protocol to reach back out to them? Is there various, do they reach back out to you as to why they didn't show up? Is it no call, no show? I'm curious to know, like, what goes on with that.
A little bit of all. Usually we send out an email, hey, you've been invited to the hiring process. And if they don't answer the email, then I will personally call them, say, hey, are you coming? Some of those people didn't either, never answered their voicemail, never answered their email, or some of them said they were coming and then they were no call, no show. So we had kind of a little bit of all of it.
Okay. And just to clarify, there are 5 current vacancies that you have?
We now have 3 because we just hired 2.
That's right.
January 20th of 25.
3 vacancies. Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Welcome.
All right. And I'm going to look to my right here, Councilor Henry.
Thank you, Madam President, and again, thank you for all of you being here. As I understand, I'm a new member to this council, so I do not know all of you yet, but I look forward to learning more about each of you and how you serve our community. I wanted to say just a few things to preface my questions and to maybe set why I'm asking the questions that I am. First, I'd like to say it's because I have so many officers or deputies in the room and families here that our body had not met until mid-January for the first time. And of course, we missed an opportunity to say thank you for National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day, which is January 9th. And I just want to say that because I maybe praise works sometimes as a motivator, and I think you need to hear it from your elected officials. By way of introduction, I want to just share with all of you that I've worked with law enforcement in our country for about 15 years. There's not a single law enforcement agency, major city in the Midwest I've not worked with by way of my government work and consulting that I've done in the past. I've seen a lot of agencies do a lot of good work. I've seen good things. Sometimes you see not so good things, but it's mostly good things. And those are good stories. And so I want you to know where I'm coming from when I ask some questions in supporting law enforcement around the country. I've spent almost 1,000 hours in incident command at special events. So I've done the work. I've worked with a lot of your brothers and sisters around the country. So here's some questions I have to get to some root understanding as we move forward. I appreciate the comment made about how we do not seem to have enough staff to do some of the 21st century policing, intelligence-led policing, and community-oriented activities that we see in other agencies in the community. And the first question I really have, that seems to be about a baseline of shifts, covering shifts, and then once we have sort of a coverage, we move on to additional personnel. And so I've heard it said a few times, we need to talk about FTEs, but we can't talk about FTEs, but Sheriff and others, why can't we start with the FTE conversation about filling shifts, offering a few more FTEs as opposed to the various proposals and raising all salary? Just help me understand that as the new guy, I think as a start. Would FTEs be better to help with filling out additional personnel and slots to try to fill?
Speaking for some of the concerns that I brought up at least, I think that our first and foremost duty has to be toward answering the incoming emergency calls for service.
Sure.
And so filling the current vacancies for our merit deputies that we currently have posted, and then maybe at some point also looking at expanding the organization for increased actual numbers on, like I said, on our second shift would have to be the first priority, because everything else that we do depends on our ability to handle incoming emergency calls. So I think that ultimately our first priority has to start there. And again, I'm not proposing that we start a bunch of special units right now, but just the fact that we can't even have that conversation because of the importance of that first part, I think is really just something that should be on your radar as a concern.
No, I appreciate that, which leads into my second question. And I may get the terminology wrong, but I think you'll understand where I'm heading with it. We have a lot of jurisdictional reciprocity in the community, right? That's how you all do your business. I live out in Van Buren Township. I rely on all of you for my law enforcement. I'm not in the city of Bloomington. But when there are calls that go out and it requires additional officers, there's jurisdictional reciprocity. You do get support from other agencies. Am I wrong in that statement or how I've stated it?
Usually on just high priority calls, we
Okay.
get assistance from other agencies.
So the data point about call outs that maybe have resist call outs, you do get support from other agencies in the community for those call outs. Is that right?
As far as the calls for service, yes.
Okay.
I mean, if we have an officer asking for assistance on the radio, another jurisdiction is going to come till we can get it calmed down, but they're not going to stay.
And then likewise, you also help backfill, say, BPD. Like if I was speeding down Walnut at 100 mile an hour, I presume you'd be involved in that.
As we
Okay,
can,
proceed.
yes.
Okay, understood. Thank you. It's another question I have involves attrition rate. And I looked at the numbers that you presented, and we know from FBI data, state data, the attrition rate in a lot of other LEOs or law enforcement orgs are significant. Maybe I did my math wrong, but is it fair to say the attrition rate's about 2% in the department here? If I take the total number and the vacancy, as opposed to like the national average of 13 to 49, depending on like IMPD. I mean, I don't know if you have that data. And it's okay if you don't. I think it's something I'd like to know more about with the attrition
I don't
rates.
know about the exact percentage, but we're running anywhere from 3 to 7 positions short all the time.
So that's just, it's just working with the numbers.
For a 40-man department.
Okay, just some other things I wanted to talk about, and maybe this is more for command. So, again, I'm looking at national data in the International Association of Chiefs of Police will talk about other ways to honor your service. I mean, compensation's obviously a large part of that. But can you share with me some of the other things the department does to honor your service, to provide leadership opportunities, or if there's dual track or dual ladders for you to take on other roles that are fulfilling, that attract you here? I mean, I know Deputy Brown, you mentioned you came over from Greene County and you were a lateral from Greene. I'm presuming there's some things you don't have to get that personal, but I'm presuming there's other things that for morale that go on. Can you help maybe the council understand that?
Yeah, so I came for the pay and the benefits as well as manpower. In Greene County, I was the only officer on third shift. He was oftentimes the only officer on second shift until they had to call me and I had to go bail him out. Long history. But we do have, I don't want to say limited leadership promotional opportunities because we're such a smaller agency with 6 sergeants and 3 lieutenants. But we have other compensations as such as specialties, crisis negotiation, members of the CERT team, the community liaison. So that's kind of a reward for those that are interested is in addition to the compensation and benefit package, you can get additional training or participate in a specialty.
One last question before I yield, Mr. President. Good here. One last question before I yield. You had made a reference to doing comparisons to other agencies in the county, IUPD, City of Bloomington. Were comps made to other sheriff's offices? Clearly, you came from one to look at comps in terms of pay from like Lawrence, Greene, Owen, Brown. I don't know what the other comps would be for other sheriff's offices, but is that data you looked at, or is that data we could look at as well?
Yes, I think it's called the WIS, W-I-S maybe?
Oh, from our own internal, sure.
Yeah, we've done that study in our sister counties or comparison counties are Vigo, Delaware, Lafayette, and I can't remember the other one, but we're, with Lafayette and Vigo, we're pretty fair, like even was under the last WIS study back prior to 22.
I presume we can get it from WIS. Otherwise, maybe an amended report that demonstrates those would be helpful for me to understand. So thank you for indulging my questions. As the newbie, I yield back. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Councilmember Henry. Are there any other council members that have questions
Can
for
I have
this?
one minute to respond?
Sure, please, Sheriff.
One of the things, keep in mind, that with their response, 100%. But keep in mind, when you ask a question, does BPD come and assist us? Yeah, they will. If they don't have emergency of their own. The other thing is this. When they ask for help, BPD cannot get there fast enough. They depend on each other to be there in a moment's notice. What we showed you, that's just the tip of the iceberg. There are certain situations that they had to handle on their own by themselves that we didn't have the luxury of waiting for anyone to show up. Anyone. And my greatest fear, God forbid, one day, someone doesn't make it home because we didn't have the man staff. Yes, help will get there, but as you know, seconds will fly by for us when truly help is needed.
All right, council members, any questions?
I have some.
Please, Councilmember Fidel.
So in looking at your packet of materials, I see this comparison with the Bloomington, Indiana Police Department, and I see all of the things listed here that are listed as benefits or compensation package or whatever you want to call it. But I don't see anything you provide for what you do. Where's your whole comparison data? I'd like to see that somewhere along the line. So is this, first of all, is this the total package compensation for Bloomington, Indiana Police Department?
This is their new one as of January 1. This is the one they're blasting all over Facebook and everywhere they can as far as their new benefit package, yes.
Okay, so I would like to see your own. How are we supposed to compare if we don't see yours, right? I see what you're telling me somebody else has, but what do you have, right? So I'd like to see that. Another thing, when I see the Sheriff's Office salary analysis and proposal page, it mentions poses unsettling safety concerns for our deputies. I would like that explained somehow. What does that mean? I understand safety concerns, but what specific types of safety concerns are we talking about here? Okay? And I don't expect answers like this minute, but I would like to be provided information about what I'm seeing and would like more explanation on. I think one thing on page 10 of your thing where you talk about the comparison with each other's salaries and ranks and that sort of thing for 2025. I think the question I had when I read that was, so where are the Sheriff Office employees going when they leave Monroe County? Is there any data on that that can be shared with us?
Well, like I was speaking in the last process.
So I heard some of it.
Yeah, so we had 2 guys leave and that process that were laterals that we're going to make offers to. Before we got to those, one of them went to IU, one of them went to Bloomington. We've also had other officers do that as well.
And could you find out the reason was just money? Was it just money?
As far as recently, yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Then on the selection process analysis page for 23 and 24, I guess I was wondering what the previous year's selection process costs were. Is this the only data we have, or there is more data we can look at?
Well, the reason it was brought up like this is when Sheriff Marte and Chief Parker took over. So we're going from January 23, which is whenever they took office. Which this doesn't include the new hires, was the money we put into
I get the clarification. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Then I think only one more.
Okay.
So on page 16, where it talks about in the second paragraph, beginning since January of 23, multiple deputies have suffered significant injuries. And then I would like to hear the correlation between the injuries and how the salary increase would fix that. if so?
I think we can answer the previous question about officer safety issues with this question tied together.
What do we need to do? Yeah.
So if we have if we're fully staffed, that's going to eliminate the stress of case and being inundated with casework and trying to prioritize solving theft or fraud investigations or even more serious crimes over being available to respond to calls. Obviously it's going to be a self-judgment that deputies are going to make, but it would eliminate that if we can be fully staffed. I feel like I'm talking weird. That complicated decision of, do I finish my investigation or do I turn out for calls for service, which then leads to, if you have one man going to a two-man call, would eliminate or lessen the likelihood of getting injured from being on a single-man call while your buddy finishes paperwork, because we all try to keep everybody in track.
So I hear you talking a little bit more about numbers rather than salaries. Is that a fair statement, or?
It's two-sided.
Okay.
Because as Sergeant Molden spoke of, we can't fill what we have open.
Yeah.
Because everyone's going for the higher dollar, the higher salary. So how are we going to fill up even more
And that's why
openings?
it's important, I think, to see when you're comparing sort of apples to apples, right? Let's see your total benefit package, total compensation package, I would call it, compared to somebody else's.
Yep, absolutely.
So I'd like to see that.
We will get that to you.
Thank you. That's all I have.
All right, I had a little bit of a moment there, but I'm back. We are over here with questions, it seems like. Any other questions on this side?
I do, Councilor Wool.
Go.
Thank you very much, Madam President. First of all, I just want to thank you all for the continued communication you've done on this. I know that for a few of you, you've been, at least in meetings with me, numerous times you've come back. And one thing I also want to say is I'm grateful for all the communication that you've given to us on this. And how well that you talk about it and present this out. I think there was a remark earlier, I'm talking weird or something like that. You all are talking just fine. In fact, you're doing a marvelous job at giving everything that you do, the challenges that you have, coming in here and explaining this. It tells me, as I kind of watch you, your ability to adapt to the different audiences you see in a day is clearly made you all magnificent at that. Well, I had one question, and I'd like to do a show of hands if people are willing to do it. How many in the room came here from another county where we attracted you in somehow, some way? Give me a raise of hands here. Okay. Thank you very much. And then how many of you have been in one or more or two or more jurisdictions in your service? Give me a raise of hands. Okay. Thank you very much. Well, we're glad that we attracted you here. And I know that part of this discussion is figuring out how we get people, keep people in all of this. I had a question. I don't know if someone can answer this. If not, maybe get back to me later, drop me a message or send it. When I pass you all, I often see you all, and I always kind of watch to see, is there anything that little old me can do? And I know I'm not supposed to do stuff like that, but I always like to make sure that you're okay when I'm passing you. But particularly when I'm going down to mow my mamaw's property, I always pass somebody out in Fullerton, kind of watching things. And I always wonder, what's that person dealing with, covering, what's going on in their life and on this shift? And roughly, I'd love to know what kind of radius that person I see out in Fullerton, what kind of radius are they covering for a shift, kind of an area? Take me through that just roughly, if you can. If you need to do it later, you can.
I can answer that, I think. So, whenever you pass a deputy that's parked side of the road there or pretty much anywhere else, there could be several different things that they're doing, and it could be multiple things at once, which is what it usually is. That might be trying to get caught up on completing a report, while maybe at the same time also, given that location, they could be trying to observe some sort of traffic for traffic enforcement or something like that. It's entirely possible as well they could actually be on an active call and they are sitting there because they had a report that there's a specific vehicle that's supposed to be coming through there and they are watching, for something very specific. Everything just will depend on what they're doing. But most commonly, if you see one of us sitting still, there's certainly paperwork that's involved, at least to some degree, while we're trying to do any other things. As far as your other question in terms of that, I would say that probably best way to, I'm trying to think of the best way I want to say this here. Really, it ultimately will depend on what else is going on in the county, because that deputy that you see there on Fulton Pike could be the only deputy that's actually available at that moment. So his area of responsibility is the entire county. If someone calls for help, he's right now at Fullerton, it's actually a good spot because he's right there by the interstate, which could give him relatively quick access to get up to Steinsville, over Unionville, over to the lake, or down, into, the Kirksville area, whatever, whatever corner of the county you need to go to. It's hard to say. Sometimes there's only 3 other people working besides the one that you saw. Yeah. And if there's a domestic disturbance, that ties up a couple of them. Then somebody else might be, working a crash investigation. So it could just be that one person for all of Monroe County. But at the same time, it's possible that there could be others available and that they're spread out, dispersed throughout the county, and it could just be a smaller, area as well. So, whenever we think about that, it just has to be very situational dependent on what exactly it is they're covering.
Thank you. I appreciate you talking through that. Years ago, somebody said, well, there's quadrants and all this, but the reality is, if that person is sitting there and a domestic abuse, disturbance, whatever anybody wants to call it, starts happening around Chapel Hill, to get to Chapel Hill, which most people don't even know what Chapel Hill is, to get to Chapel Hill, you might as well book a flight to Greece, because one of those is going to be quicker than the other, and it's not going to be the drive. And then getting back, I mean, that's, you've committed to a probably hour and a half, depending on the round trip. And so I think sometimes that does get lost in a shuffle, sometimes in a community where we sometimes think it stops at the, the city's edge of the malls like that, but it's not. Those are serious commitment. One thing I just want to say, earlier I made some comments about the legislation that we've got. That's our headache, that's not your headache. Although if you're talking to legislators and you can say, well, they were yelling about something before they got to our salaries, I don't know if you're looking at anything, that would help us. But one thing that I am concerned about with that, and I just want to be very direct with you all, is that a bunch of people being political at different levels of government is going to really screw us over. And I want to apologize to you for that, as an elected official that took an oath of office, that should not happen, but sometimes people have lost their minds, as my memo also would say. So I throw all that out there because of the headaches that we have and the things that we're doing, is so that run to Chapel Hill is as easy as possible, as it is given how bad it probably is on all those logistics, the car, all those things. And I appreciate that. I also appreciate the other questions from counselors that have been brought up tonight. And I know there will be more later on.
Councilor Hawk.
A brief mention of the difference from a few years ago and where we are now. Because I've heard from others, well, Monroe County's never been able to keep up with Bloomington. Bloomington always pays more than Monroe County for our law enforcement. And a lot of that, when we were saying, well, but we give Monroe County the vehicles to take home, like that was gonna make all the difference. That is no longer on the table. One of you already mentioned that. The city has take home, Ellisville has take home. I mean, so that's not going to get it, folks. So if I know that you want to serve and you serve the public, because you have to have a servant's heart or you wouldn't be in this business. We all know that, and thank God for that. But I will say this, you have families to take your paycheck home to as well. And so it's really hard to recruit someone to come and join your team if they're starting out with a whole brand new change, if they can go right across the street and make $9,000 more a year or whatever. I think that would speak a lot to most people who have to take a paycheck home. But for those people who have said to me, we're never going to be able to keep up with Bloomington. Well, let me tell you what, you folks have made the difference. You've let us know that you are worthy of being paid what other law enforcement officials are being paid in this region and in this state. And it's up to us to figure out how we're going to do that. And yes, we have to work with legislation. We have to look where the revenue is coming from. But we have to also know that the people that we represent, the citizens at home, they want public safety. They want law enforcement to make a difference, and they want someone to show up at their door if they're in trouble. They want the ambulance to show up if they're hurt. They want the fire department to show up if their house is on fire. And you folks all work together. We know how this works. And so I don't have any questions of you. You know that I talk with you often, and I'm not shy to ask questions. But I just think we have to recognize that we have a group of people who are dedicated to Monroe County, and I really appreciate each and every one of you. And I want to say I'm sorry that you had to wait through for so long to have your story told, because it's important that you tell it. Thank you.
Just to really like to go on a run sometime.
Councilor Iverson.
Well, thank you for coming today. Thank you. It's good to see many of you again. You all look wonderful in your professional garb, and your presentation was clearly on your A game. Of course, Sheriff Marte, when he arrived, he really, I think brought a lot of that professionalization with him, and I'm really thankful that you're all working together as a team. I think my colleagues were asking a lot of the kind of the bigger questions. I'm, as many of you know, have been on ride-alongs. I've helped serve warrants, and by that I mean I sat in the car while they went inside. I've been on a domestic violence call. By that I was told to stay in the car. And the first person I ever saw overdose was on a ride-along. The first time I ever saw Narcan used was on a ride-along. So I'm really indebted to all of you for doing that. And yes, the lights went on, and I got thrown into my seat as hard as I've ever been thrown into the seat before. So that was fun. I'm going to address page 18 of the packet. Do you all have that? This is the proposal with COLA. And then I want to cross-reference page 10, which is the wages comparison with other municipalities. All right, got it. All right, so in the proposal, we've got our merit polls A, B, and C. And then on page 10, we've got probationary officer, first-year officer, officer for class, school resource officer, first-year deputy. How do those match up with our job classification? So for example, we've been talking a lot about Bloomington Police Department. The probationary patrolman, is that a merit poll A? Is the officer first class a merit poll B? How am I supposed to compare these two?
Yeah, so their officer first class will be like I believe it's a 3-year for them.
Gosh, I can take care of that. So that's actually a really hard comparison to make. It's apples to oranges. City has a completely different matrix. Their pay categories is classification and years of service. It doesn't adequately compare. I have a separate spreadsheet I can send to you. It's very detail oriented, and it's our best way to try to line those things up, but you can't just compare them across the line. It doesn't line up like that.
So as the fiscal body, we're asked to be looking at $82,161 a year over at the city, and we've got to bring you folks up to that. And then I'm looking across these categories, and it seems like, it'd be nice to know, like, which one of those categories are we trying to recruit into, and, is it 1 year, 3 year, and, that sort of thing, because clearly if you're at the 14 year in A, B, or C, you're going to be higher than, what's over in the city, unless we're comparing the 14 year here with the 14 year there. So
yeah, so those totals reflected on the page 19 is totals of, and this is in the spreadsheet I can send you. It is our entire staff in their respective years of service, in their respective merit polls, years of service, and all
that's right. And I think that if we go to page 19, the column that I think you want us to look at is that bottom table, the 2025. That includes the 3.2 COLA, which is the total funds needed of about $732,891.
Correct.
Okay. So just for folks watching at home, we're not voting today's discussion, and the total fiscal impact here is about $733,000 to implement the proposal that you guys took us through. By the way, you hit 15 minutes like perfectly. I don't know if you practiced that, but I just thought I'd point that out.
Just real quickly to expand a little bit on what you're talking about, there's obviously two parts of this. There's the recruiting and the retention part. So what we're looking at in the recruiting part is obviously what's someone come in walking in the door. The brand new guy, is he going to come here or is he going to go there? And Kim Shell put together some different proposals there that are in spreadsheets, and they got all kinds of fancy coloring and highlighting and everything like that.
In purple,
does
yeah.
so nicely. And as we've talked about, there was several different proposals in there, and I think the scenario number 3 is the one that brought us right to the baseline of their starting salary. Now, from that point on, we talk about retention. And we have our own salary matrix here, as you all are aware, because you all put it together. So from that point forward, what you'll see in there is we kind of abandon what BPD doing, what they're doing with their salary bands or theirs, because we're going to stick with our own salary matrix. So we start at that baseline entry level, and then we apply our salary ordinance from that point out. Sometimes, we get out, I haven't really committed it to memory, but if you get out to a 15-year lieutenant, we might be right close to where a BPD guy would be. We might be a little above, we might be a little below. But we did not completely rework our salary ordinance to line up with the salary ordinance of IU or Bloomington or any other place. Does that help make any sense?
Yeah, and I think that makes a lot of sense, right? You'd go crazy trying to line up penny for penny with another jurisdiction. But parity in this case means in the same ballpark where your staff is not automatically leaving to join another staff, based solely on pay.
Because we've experienced both, as these deputies told you, we've lost quality lateral applicants, and we have lost experienced officers. So we've experienced both here. And one of the things I want to reiterate a little bit here, in the line of work that we engage in, there is no substitute for experience. If you look at the policing field, I suppose it's just like anything else. If you're a brand new carpenter, you're probably not as good at your job as, a guy's been doing it for 20 years. The difference is when we make a mistake, it's magnified, either to the good or to the bad. We arrest the wrong person, that's bad. Our instincts when we're dealing with someone, when you're brand new, you don't have those. You haven't developed them yet. So your instincts may not make the hairs on the back of your neck stand up, and you wind up getting into a situation that you wish you hadn't been in, where an experienced officer would have immediately recognized this guy's showing the signs, the way people turn their body, the way they hold their hands, the way they make eye contact with the way they don't make eye contact you, where they're looking in their car. All those things you develop your police instincts, and believe me, I've lost a lot of them because I've been riding a desk for about 30 years. But I haven't forgot them. These guys know them. So I can't tell you how important it is for these guys to have experienced officers sitting next to them. And it kind of goes to your question, ma'am, that how does the salary help with the injuries? Well, the answer may be, well, directly, it doesn't help at all. But indirectly, when Josh Fuller and Nathan Peach are rolling up on the same call, they know each other. They know what they're going to do. They know how to handle a situation. Their instincts have been developed, and that enhances their safety more than you can probably ever measure. So I don't know if that helps with your question here, but it's a very real thing. Police instincts cannot be replaced with anything but training and experience. Training, and you burn the synapses, as we call it. Those little things in your brain that fire, say danger, 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 or hey, we need to address this call a little bit differently. And the other thing about experience is if those two guys are on that call and Nathan's going the wrong way on that call, and we got Josh Fuller, who's an experienced deputy, he can say, hey, bud, let's reevaluate this. So there's all these little nuances here that I would implore you to understand, that we're not just simply asking, hey, we need more money. All of these things go into, this is the survival of the agency, that we are competitive, that we attract good people, and we keep good people, because those good people have the instincts that we have to have here to enhance public and officer safety.
I mean, literally the cream of the crop.
Yes, absolutely. We want the best, and we have it, and we want to keep it. All these folks out here, I mean, I'm looking back there. We've got a guy back there that came over from Owen County. Excellent addition to our cadre here, and we want to keep him. We don't want him going back to Owen County. We don't want him to go into IU. We don't want him to go into Bloomington. And he's just one example of that. And all of these guys that came over here that have decided to stay with us, at some point, we don't wonder why their breaking point where their wives look at them and go, you can't stay there. We can't afford it anymore.
Madam President, I have no further questions.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I want to ask a quick question, and then I'll go to you, Councilmember Fidel. So at least what I had read is that BPD's contract, I think, is like this takes effect until like 2026. I don't, maybe. So my thought and where I'm going with this is, say for example, we have now listened to you, we've heard what you are doing, and council takes a vote, hypothetically speaking, and it goes in your favor, and then we implement this raise. And then we have one of those law enforcement agencies that is in the comparison sheet see what we've done, and now instead of being first place, we slide down to 3 or 4, fourth place again. And it's almost like the Ricky Bobby, if you're not first, you're last. But my question is, in all seriousness, is then do you come back to say, hey, we got a problem again? We're also in the process of trying to make sure that we are still keeping up and trying to make sure that we are still the best in the county. And now we have another ask. And so I don't think any of us here are, not wanting to give you what you are looking for. For sure I want to. My concern as a fiscal body member is, how are we going to be able to keep up with the ask? So I asked that to you all, and I guess the other part to that is there a way, I just thought about this, is there a way that maybe we can sit down with other law enforcement agencies in this area to figure out how we can stop poaching from each other in a way that, we can all work together for the common good of public safety? That's just a thing that I've been thinking about. as we've been having these types of conversations, and I had it a while ago, and I just wanted to ask it.
So I understand the question, and I can see the logic where it comes from. It's a very difficult thing to predict what's going to happen in the future. If I could, I tell you what, that's one. Two, asking us to try to talk to another department and see, okay, hey, do we have an agreement? It's not truly going to help us in the sense of another city agent somewhere else. Let's just stick here in Bloomington and say IU University. Keep in mind, IU University is not only in Bloomington, that's statewide. So if IU has to deal with statewide, why would they want to just put a tap on their people because we're asking? I get the logic, but in our world, it just doesn't work like that. It just truly doesn't. I wish it could, but it just doesn't. One of the things that has come up before, and I'm saying this, I want to say this very respectfully. We're not saying that we're better than anyone else. We're saying we're very different. When an emergency hits, I guarantee you, if it happens here in the city of Bloomington and in the county, Bloomington's going to take care of Bloomington. The county's up to us. There's no way around that. There was a situation here in town that we had to deal with it on our own. When we had a group of people from IU coming to the jail to cause some problems, we were on our own. And that's just one example. When we had an emergency at the jail, we almost had to evacuate that place. Guess what? We were on our own. So I wish I could predict the future for you, but what I could tell you is this: we have to be ready at a moment's notice. And if one of us gets hurt, it puts the other person more in jeopardy. So when we come to you, we don't come to you very light and say, we just want money. That is not it. We do know, because I've been doing this for close to now about 40 years. I could tell you that public safety is something that we really do not want to take a chance on, because we're already small as it is right now, and the county has grown. And I lived here for over 30 years. It's grown. So it's very crucial for us that we have to be, one of the things when I started here as the sheriff, I came to the council and the commissioners, I said, and to the public, I said, I will be transparent. You might not like to hear what I have to say, but I'm going to tell you the truth. It's going to be factual, that we could back it up. So I appreciate the questions that you need more information. Granted, we will try to provide it to you. But understand that time is not on our side. It is not. Once the word gets out that someone in the department is going to pay you better, and the mindset of a young person that has a family, they're not really worrying too much about benefits. What they're worried about is how are they going to feed their family, take care of the family now. At our age, the chief deputy and myself have been around for so long. Yeah, we think about benefits. Yes, but not these folks right now. I would not blame, to better their family, I don't blame them if they went somewhere else. I don't want them leaving, but who am I to hold them back to better themselves? That is not right. So I urge you, I understand the logic behind that question, but it just doesn't work for us in that way. It just can't. Because I might agree to it. It doesn't mean another person say, yeah, for now, but when it truly comes to the people that you're protecting in your jurisdiction, they come first. I ain't saying it. But help each other when we can. Yes, we can. We don't have the luxury of providing that assistance where we want to because we don't have the manpower. We just don't. BPD will probably have it, but BPD is not going to go to Monroe Lake, try to help us out there in a timely manner. It's just not going to happen. So realistically, Monroe County is a large county. At any given moment, we could be in any part of this county by ourselves. And yes, to me, it bothers me and it worries me that any one of them could get hurt because we don't have the manpower. I'm passionate about that because that really concerns me. So, but thank you for the question.
So I just had another hopefully simple request. I'm interested to know the average seniority of your staff, right? So, and is it maybe specific to us? I don't know all the different types of job classifications you have. So is there a type of job classification that has a longer seniority average, or is it you got the average for the whole thing? I'd be interested in the average of the whole thing. If you can break it down at all by any type of job, that would be good too. So.
I just have one quick question that I would also like for data for us to consider, and then a comment off of President Crossley's question or comment. So the request would be, you'd mentioned in the presentation about attrition or people that had left the process and went to BPD and left the process. And then you mentioned there were 2 other individuals that had left the department about that time, but I didn't quite catch where they went.
One went to Putnam County, one went to Westfield PD.
Okay, so and so I guess that's my question is, if do we have that kind of data to talk about all the attrition over the past few years of where everybody went? I mean, because I think it'd be helpful for me to understand how many went to your comp agencies that you're comparing against versus Putnam County versus other places. It might just be helpful to see where else people go. I guess that's my question there. It is a very small number to work with. It's not like we're talking about a 4,000 person agency, so it's a very small number to figure out, and that would help. My comment goes back, President Crossley, and I appreciate where you're going with this, and I know Sheriff Marte, we've talked about this as well. It seems to me that I agree that I don't believe it is on the agency heads to have the lateral conversation about how the public safety market works in our county. I do think that falls to a combination of all of us plus elected officials to really think about joint oversight. There are other counties and cities in the country that practice joint oversight bodies. I've discussed this before I arrived here. And I know there's some interest in the city for an interlocal on that. There's some members of city council that would be up for having the conversation about how the regional market is for law enforcement. I think we have to be very mindful of our collective bargaining units when we talk about that. But I know there's an appetite in other entities to avoid, I think, the scenario the president outlined, which is sort of a every 2-year discussion, and how we maybe go at it differently. Maybe the answer is we don't get there because, again, we have 2 law enforcement agencies in the county that are statewide. We also have, well, actually 3 when we count DNR, I guess. So we have, I don't know if there's an opportunity there to handle that on our side of the shop, but I just want to add to that comment. So we have a short-term problem for all of you today, and we have a kind of a long-term problem that may be placed in a different place to discuss that. That's my comment about that, but thank you.
All right. Looking around, any final? So what I will task the council in as we are wrapping up this evening is the fact that I don't want you all to feel like you just talked into a hot room and it is very warm in here and all of this. But I also want you all to know and understand that, we're very serious about this as well. And we also, again, as I had mentioned earlier, and the common theme is we have no clue what this legislation is going to do to us. And my biggest concern and my biggest fear is the fact that we say yes and we cannot sustain what we give you all. And then therefore, if we cannot sustain it for, we might look good to go in 25, but then 26, 27 and beyond, then we might be in deep doo-doo. And I don't want to feel like then therefore there's intense pressure for us to figure out where the crossroads. Now, do we have to start eliminating or whatever the case is? So I have said this before, and I will say this again. I would feel comfortable. We just did the whole conversation of the long-term finance committee. We have FSG coming to us and talking to us. I personally, just like we did last year when it came to figuring out whether or not we are going to tax or not tax, when it came to the correctional tax, on trying to figure out with what we were doing with the jail. That was a big ask for us to ask residents and taxpayers of the county. And now, because this is a big ask, we need to make sure that we are being smart and doing our due diligence and making sure that we can continue to sustain this if this is something that we are able to do. And I would like to take this to FSG and the Long-Term Finance Committee and have the conversation with the committee and try to bring that back to the full council. I understand that time is of the essence. I understand now that we are in day 28 of this year and we don't want to push things further down the road. And you all have a hard job and a task, and I'm very much grateful and thankful for what you all do. And we do too. And so if there's a way that we can kind of work together and know that we are going to try to find a solution. But for me personally, and I'm looking around to see if councils would be in agreement with this, I would really like to take this to the Long-Term Finance Committee so we can figure out the next steps. So I look to my council members to see what say you on this. Councilor Iverson.
I think we have discussed this a little bit. Timeline to show, did you all hear the beginning of that? No, it doesn't matter. To show that we are taking you all seriously, that we want to be transparent with you. I think that's a reason why many of these folks are asking for data, is just to be transparent with you all. It's not to put you over the coals. It's not to make you work even harder when you're already out on the road. And I think going before a very public body that is recorded with financial experts who understand the lay of the land in Indiana, what the legislature is doing up in Indianapolis, I think makes a lot of sense. I think we could get that done in February, and we could potentially have this brought back to the council in February even. Maybe it would take longer, but I think I'm certainly willing to take this that seriously.
Madam President, I have just a point of clarification, understanding I'm still new. My understanding is LTGF was formed is primarily for forecasting. This is salary and class and comp. Is that a typical question that's answered through that committee? And because I mean, a contractor will answer any question that you know, that's how contractors work. I'm just trying to understand what the scope of the committee, if it actually fits. And that's maybe my ignorance.
But it would also be a budget.
Okay, so the question is really budgetary, not class comp or something.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that.
And this says they meet monthly, right? So have they already met for January? And we're looking at a February meeting for long-term?
Nope, because we just did that tonight. So myself, along with Councilor Hawk and
I'm the other one, yeah.
You are the other one. So ideally what I would like to have is, because Ms. Turner King had mentioned that she's going to take this contract back to FSG to finish everything. Once we can finish that contract, then they know that, and I'm sure, as she had mentioned earlier, that, you know, they are asking for us not to do, or they've advised us rather, because we can do whatever we want to do if we put our minds to it. But they are advising us to make sure that we aren't doing anything until state legislation is over. And I would recommend us having this conversation with this budget conversation with FSG just to kind of figure out. I just think it's just the responsible thing to do. So ideally, as Councilor Iverson was saying, that this is something that us as a committee could take, or we can take this up in the committee. And then this is also something that could be brought back to the full council. And I see Ms. Turner King has her hand up.
Tentatively, we were looking to schedule an LTF meeting for February 21st, and we've already reached out to FSG to see their availability for that meeting.
Thank you.
Councilor Deckert.
I agree very much, Madam President, that it's the path for this to take. And the reason I do is because as the now immediate former chair of LTF, Long-Term Finance Committee, I watched that committee in its first year take the mud ball that was the jail, which I think a few of you may have watched and what have you, take the mud ball on funding for the jail and turn that into something that we could then figure out. And they helped us figure out what we could do, when we could do it, how we could do it, and what the limits of that were. And it was so close with FSG. And one of the benefits is with those meetings being advertised for council being able to come, that helps counselors to be able to come in and ask their questions, get information that they need, and then be able to better prepare for this. FSG also, and I'll say this kind of again, just to recap, they have one hand in the county, figuring out what counties are dealing with and doing, and what the projected budgets are for counties looking forward. They also have another ear close to the legislature as they see committees start to form up. Greg Garitas himself talks a lot about Chairman Thompson of the House Ways and Means Committee of the Indiana House of Representatives. So I think that is a path forward to figure out what it is we can and cannot do. I think about a year ago I said, figure out what we need figuring out, and that's part of this.
Looking to my right to see if you all have some final comments. No? Councilor Hawk, do you have some comments?
Just that I'm watching every day, and I know that Holdman is very busy in the tax and fiscal committees and looking at those numbers. And we know that Thompson is working on 1402 over in Ways and Means, and neither one of them are going to end up the way they are right now. And they're going to be taking bits and pieces from both and put them together in some other combined bill. And we're not going to know in 2 weeks' time. And so I'm not telling you I know what the answer is. What I'm telling you is I don't think anybody knows what the answer is right now as what's going to happen with our revenue sources. So what I would like, if somebody was looking at me to say, what should we do? I would say we should take a pause on a lot of any additional requests. Give it just a minute here and see where we stand. And that means, and when somebody says, well, we want somebody else and we want to put them in at a 4-year or a 5-year, whatever, we ought to try to stick with that entry, whatever that salary is, and quit adding on to our budgets until we know where we are. Because I've served since 1988 and I've never seen such a radical change in what's being proposed. So if anybody says they know where we're going to land, I think they're just blowing smoke. We don't know, but we better quit. If we're going to say to these folks, we need a pause, we need to take a breath here, we better recognize we say that to every department while we're taking the breath. That's my 2 cents worth.
Those are good 2 cents. Okay. Any other? Oh, Councilor Wiltz.
I just want to say I agree with Councilor Hawk. I'm not suggesting that we do a hiring freeze or anything like that right now, but I don't think it's off the table given the information that we have received, and it's very serious. So should we look at this proposal and say no, thank you? I agree that we should be saying that to everybody. This is because it's not the merits of this proposal that are wrong at all. And in fact, you all, have all my respect, and you are amazingly articulate. And thank you for the offer to do a ride-along, because that sounds very interesting, although totally scary after seeing that video. And the last time I asked about a ride-along was before this administration, and I did not receive a response. So appreciate that. I haven't asked any questions, and to be quite honest, I have mixed feelings about asking questions of you all because my last questions were received very poorly. It has nothing to do with the gentleman here at this table, but I will follow up with questions as I need to, and do know that we are really taking you seriously. Thanks.
Okay. All right. So looking around, so as you have heard, this is something that we want to take up with the Long-Term Finance Committee, and I think that we will be in communication. Looks like you got some comment.
Yeah, just real quick.
Sure.
We talked about all these different scenarios and all these different spreadsheets, and I think it's incumbent upon us, in the spirit of collaboration, what you've asked us to do is to, one, I think Staff Sergeant Ruiz has jotted down the data that you're seeking, so we'll get that back to you. But the second thing is, I think we need to finalize what are we really asking for here. So I think we go through the scenarios that Kim Shell kind of put for us. We'll say this is the scenario we're looking at for the bargaining unit, and this is the scenario that we're looking at if we all agree we're going to separate the appointed staff. This is the scenario we're looking at for them. So that, to be fair to the council, you're not trying to walk through the weeds here about, okay, what are they really asking for? So we will get you a finalized, in a box, very simply, here's what we're asking for. I hope to have that to you tomorrow, late this week, if at worst early next week. Does that make sense? Will that be helpful to this process?
Yeah, I think it reminds me of sort of like, what will it take, right?
Sorry?
What will it take here?
Yes.
What will it take here?
Yeah, so if you don't know what you're being asked, it's pretty hard to give an answer.
Sure.
So I think we'll give you what we're asking, then you've got your job to do, and we recognize that. And we recognize it's probably never been more difficult. When we were going through this resolution you guys were talking about, I thought about walking up and saying, wouldn't now be a good time to ask for a pay raise? So, and that's what we're doing here, and we recognize that, and it's just kind of a timing issue. And
that's timing.
So it's not lost on us. Mm-hmm. We'll get that to you.
Seriously. Okay. Yeah. Did you have something to say? Oh, I was just going to say I appreciate the spirit of collaboration, because as we've seen, and again, breaking news that I just saw, there's some more orders that looks like the state is coming down on us in regards to what you all do. So that is very interesting. And I think we as county government, this year is going to be the year of, we're going to have to work together and get along as much as we can. And we might not be able to agree on everything, but we have to have some kind of common ground. So I think this is the best way of us trying to advance and move the needle and do our due diligence to make sure that we are giving you what you are asking for, and we are doing our due diligence to make sure that we are being as fiscally responsible as much as we can. So I just want to say thank y'all so much for taking the time to be here as long as you have, and for those that have family members here as well. I really appreciate it. You could have been anywhere, but you are here, and we appreciate that. So thank y'all so much.
Council, thank you as well, all of you, for giving us the time that we needed to express to you our concerns. And that is truly appreciated, and I mean that, truly appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Last but not least, we've kind of switched up this way on the agenda of council updates. And this is going to be council updates where if you are a liaison and you have any updates to liaisons or anything, and comment. It's been a long night, but if you got something to say, I guess you can go ahead and say it. So I will look over to my right here, and I'm looking at Councilor Hawk. You got something to say? You're sparkly with your scarf. Anything, Councilor Hawk? Any more updates to the State House?
I started saying everything I have on my mind with what all's been going on at the state. You would never, Liz knows that. Like, every time we have a conversation, it's an hour.
Oh, it's only an hour.
We still haven't talked about what we started talking about. So, thank you all for allowing me to miss that last meeting. I didn't have a driver's license. I've got one now. And I look forward to figuring out a way that we're going to get to the other side of this We've ran into things before. This county government will still be around. It may look different, but we are up to the task. All we have to do is believe it. You know, trust in yourself. We'll do what's right. We will have to.
All right. Anybody else over here to my right? No? Oh. All right, go ahead.
Man. Oh my gosh. Wow. Oh, geez.
Go for it.
This is in all sincerity, in the time that as many of us were driving here and starting our meetings, the administration in Washington, which is quite honestly the most incompetent presidency we have ever had, just turned off federal grants and a lot of the payments to a lot of the agencies. And while a judge did step in while we were sitting here, both Reuters and Politico are reporting that Medicaid recipients are not going to be getting their payments potentially because of this shutdown. Just as a reminder, these are mothers and children. These are poor people. And this is an absolute miscarriage of justice. This is completely unconstitutional. It just boggles my mind. And I know that we're in a local government, but that's all I'm going to say about it. Completely incompetent.
All right. Looking over to my left. Any final comments over here? No? I didn't scare y'all.
I appreciate the process, and I'm just getting started.
All right. Okay. A lot of mic issues. Without any other further ado, I think this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.